fish, two fish, redfish, bluefish on Twitch because I needed content. That's what we've come to.
And Moulton.
Well, we need to explain to her the pilot program, and we need 25 hours of programming a week. So you need to deliver your 12 minutes a day, 5 times a week, because that's an hour, honey.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
All guests appear on the Goldberg Noon Abraham hotline. Goldberg-law.com.
Yes! No! Oh, I like it! It's up to you now! It's up to you! I like it!
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
How the heck are you? Miller and Moulton on this Tuesday, the 2nd of June. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We're streaming at foxsportsfm.com, and we are broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch TV channels. Top of the morning to you, Mark. How are you?
Little more oomph today there, David. That had a
Really?
little bit of oomph to it.
Wow, because I gave it all I had yesterday.
I thought that had a little more oomph. Who knows? Maybe I just had your microphone turned up a little bit louder.
That might have been
A
it.
little clearer, a little more oomph, a little more bang to it. I liked it. I like
All
it. I
right.
like day 2 sounding a little better than day 1. That fires me up, man.
Off to a rousing start.
Don't know why I started like Gruden right there off the bat. Hey, man, sound better.
Well, I do feel like Derek Carr sometimes. Just always on the verge of being replaced.
No chance on that.
So
Well,
how you doing on this Tuesday?
I'm probably still as confused as I was on Monday, but we'll do a little sports today, and that'll ease my mind for 3 hours. But David, it is the baseball hour.
It is.
This has been dubbed the baseball hour for a while. Mainly, I did this to David because last summer when he wanted to talk baseball, I tried to make him do it between 6 and 7 when the audience was at its smallest and the potential for the older audience was at its largest, which is the last beacon of the baseball fan out there.
Right. It was Mark's way of making fun of both me and the sport I love.
Yes, and no better time to make fun of the sport you love than this morning, David, because yesterday was a terrible day for baseball. Now, we know they're negotiating, and just to lay it out for everyone, the owners a couple of weeks ago came with their proposal. Was it 81 games, 80 games, 82 games,
82.
something? 82 games. And the players took a while to countered with their 114 game schedule that they wanted because they wanted to get paid more. And we all knew that the players' proposal was going to have somewhere around 100 games. That seemed to be the number that we kept hearing that they wanted. All right, so they pumped it to 114, 82, 114. Seemed like we could settle in the 100 range. The owners came back with their proposal yesterday and offered a 50-game schedule.
Right.
50.
Yep. Owners are pouting. Make no mistake about it. The owners are like, fine. You won't give us money back? You won't agree to defer money? You want your prorated money? Fine. We'll give you your prorated money, but we're only going to play 50 games. You'll get about 30% of what it is you were scheduled to make this year. That's it. We're only going to play 50 games. I mean, think about that, by the way.
It's less than a third of the season.
Well, and not only that, I mean, that's 2 months.
David, yesterday and today was the day when Ricky Henderson, yesterday in 81, stole 2 bases to get to 50, the fastest ever to do it. That's it. Season would be over, basically.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, think about this. So let's just, for a second, the players would accept this. They're in spring training next week, 3 weeks or so, around July 1st or July 4th, whatever. They're going to play 2 months. So what, Labor Day weekend, the playoffs begin? You're going to be done before October? I mean, how And once again, we're all dealing with a lot of stuff right now. So to say that the fans don't care, I don't know if the fans have ever cared less than they do right now. Got a lot going on.
And the least important thing on most people's mind is the baseball season.
Right. Especially since it hasn't started yet. There's no emotional attachment to it whatsoever. There's no hook at all. It's not like the NBA season, in which in Milwaukee and Los Angeles, in which fans there are dreaming of a championship. We got nothing. I mean, Nats fan who wants to celebrate their World Series title, they're probably like, hell, let's just wait another year. Let's just do it right. 50 games. I mean, tried to warn you. Listen, Seth is a love him or hate him guest. And Seth's been on this show for over a decade. And for the 2 years plus that we've been in our second act, almost from day one, Seth is like, you got to trust me on this. There's going to be a work stoppage in baseball. The two sides have a lot of mistrust. They don't like one another. You got to trust me on this. But, when he's saying it in 2018 and 2019, it's like pat him on the head because the CBA is not up till December 1st of 2021. Well, I mean, let's just make the announcement now. I mean, these two sides are going to war. I mean, if this is really, really where the owners are coming from as a collective group, this was their counter proposal to what the players put together.
And David, yesterday I said to you that there are teams out there. It is a known fact that there are teams out there that would lose less money by not playing.
Right.
The question was, how many teams are there? How much power do those who don't, this is one of the few times that the owners have equal voting here, that the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Cubs and the Dodgers aren't completely steering this ship. The only thing that I also gathered from yesterday's proposal is that there may be more owners who would rather not play a season at all for financial reasons.
How much of it is for financial reasons and how much of it is like, you know what? If we're going to sacrifice a year to try to win that 2021 CBA war, let's do this. Let's do it now.
Because as we all, I think, have come to the conclusion of in life, that there are certain people who are in a whole different stratosphere that don't have a reality check of what's going on in the world and don't have an idea of what, to me, catastrophic damage would happen to Major League Baseball if they don't play this year.
You think it would be catastrophic?
I do.
I don't.
And David, maybe the events of the last 8 to 10 days have taken your side because there's far more important things going on in the world than the baseball season. And I know baseball's not as important. But given the fact that we're at 20 to 25% unemployment, that nearly everybody's taken it right in the pocketbook, and now the billionaires and millionaires are arguing over this and not playing, I just don't know how many. A guy like me who has been turning away from baseball slowly, it won me back. I mean, the steroids and McGuire and Sosa and Cal Ripken won me back a little bit. That's what brought me back. And then the Tigers played well for a while. That kept me going. Right now, there's not a lot that makes me enjoy the game. And if they pull this, I'll read scores so we can talk about it on here. But I can tell you this, I won't be watching any games in 2021.
See, Mark, I see this as a tremendous missed opportunity for baseball.
Totally.
That this was a way for baseball to grow their pie, so to speak. But let's backtrack a second. If what we've talked about in the past and what I was pounding the table about yesterday for a brief time, that baseball has become largely a regional sport. I mean, huge economic engine, 11 billion annually, but that baseball has become a regional sport. The question then becomes, would a lost season, would it in 26 regions, if you will, because you got 2 teams in New York, 2 in LA, 2 in Chicago, and what have you, would every single region collapse?
No.
You know what I mean?
No, you're right there.
And so if you think about it, how many fan bases would truly be lost?
Well,
if you know what I mean, like a year from now, I mean, people in LA are busy. They'd miss the Dodgers and Angels. But if all of a sudden a year from now the Dodgers and Angels are back, my guess is Dodgers and Angels fans would come back.
And you know what, David? You make a great point. And I guess I'm thinking in terms of, I thought baseball had a monumental chance to get back into the national scene now.
Totally.
And
that I agree
that's
with
I think where my brain's coming from. I think you're right. Ultimately, David, in the regional markets, it won't affect too many. It'll affect the 10, 15% of the casual fan base that may not like the Tigers or the Twins or the Royals or the Cubs or whatever. But I'm talking from a national standpoint. I'm watching NASCAR, for crying out loud. You don't think I'd watch the game of the week right now? There's nothing on. You've given me a void of sports since March. I just want to watch. So I guess I'm in terms of the national game. If they miss a season, next year comes along nationally when playoffs and World Series and All-Star games come around, I don't think it will be covered the same. I don't think it will be viewed the same. And I don't think it will be thought of the same.
You might be onto something there at the end. All right. Not covered the same, not thought of the same. I mean, baseball could, if they are going to blow up this season, baseball could lose its place in American society, where essentially it's fighting for number 2 between college football and, to some degree, the NBA.
And the NBA will be number 2 from a media standpoint always. It's not going to be the number 2 revenue league. No. It's not going to be the number 2 TV numbers league, but it will be the number 2 covered league.
But baseball's opportunity here, I mean, think about the month of July. For all that we have lined up, I mean, hockey's not going to be playing in July. The NBA ain't going to be playing in July. I mean, if for nothing else, Mark, if for 1 month you can get your sport, no matter what that sport is, if you can get your sport front and center in front of an America that right now is thirsting for entertainment, a month. And the beauty of baseball is they play every night. It's not just a month of Saturdays or Thursdays or Sundays. It's a month. And then you hook them in. You don't know. I mean, you're bigger than hockey. All right. I don't know. I mean, right now the NBA is talking about, I guess they're ultimately going to decide on Thursday what it is their plan is going to be going forward. A big push behind the scenes, by the way, for some of the smaller market franchises. And Mark, I think you could relate to this a little bit in your days of trying to market minor league hockey. Some of the smaller NBA franchises, if I could just sidebar for a second, they are pleading with the NBA going, hey, all right, we need to be back. We need to play some games now. We can't go 9-10 months without playing a game. We just can't, not in our market. We can't be out of sight, out of mind for 9-10 months, because the thought is going forward that, remember, the NBA stopped the night of March 11th, and next season's not going to start till around Christmas. And so there are some franchises out there going, listen, whether we're in it or not, all right, we need to play as many games as possible so that we're still viable in our market. We're still talked about. We can't go dark for 9.5, 10 months.
Interesting. Because I don't see any reason to continue a regular season, and they obviously do.
Right. Well, it's apparently the smaller markets. Like the Knicks, are, they have no interest in playing. The Knicks are who
is it? This the T-Wolves?
No, it's Oklahoma City, actually.
Oklahoma City.
And they're in the playoffs. They've had a good year.
I don't buy it. I really think that's near an asinine statement. They're the only team in town.
The Sacramentos of the world.
They're the only team in town.
I agree. The Sacramentos of the world. That supposedly this argument was made pretty passionately behind the scenes. It's not expected to win out, but that argument being made behind the scenes. But I think that this is a missed opportunity and a huge one for baseball. Ultimately, though, what I think it could do, it could absolutely cement it as a regional sport and number 2 in money only. That baseball in some ways would never be the same. Because the other thing they're setting themselves up for is, come on, let's be honest. I mean, we might as well put this in a way that many of us can understand. This is a relationship that right now is in a really bad spot between the owners and the players.
David, I would not want to be the marriage counselor.
Right. And if the owners and the marriage counselor is trying to, mediation, come up with a 90 to a 100 game season, this, that, and the other thing. Hey, you agreed to this before, so why don't you play by those rules now? You get a chance to renegotiate them in 18 months. That's what the marriage counselor is trying to do. And instead, the players are like, hey, let's play as many games as possible. And let's play by the old rules as possible. And the owners are like, well, to be honest with you, we really don't have much interest in any of this. I guess we'll play 50 games. That's it. 50 games. 50. Now, hey, there are some who think the baseball season's way too long.
Well, I'm one of them, but 50's way too short for...
Right. Right. I mean, to me,
you couldn't even...
I want to split seasons in half. I mean, that's not even a normal half a season for me.
David, here. I mean, that's 16 three-game sets.
Basically.
Yep. You couldn't play your whole league home and home. Play your division, but you couldn't play your whole league home and home.
Oh, no.
I guess you could do two gamers. That's 25 two-gamers, which they wouldn't do.
In theory, they were going to have East play East, Central play Central, West play West. So, you play 6 games, you're home and home against your teams in the division. I got
an
interleague. That's it.
I got you. I got you. They were only playing inside their division. I'm just making the point of how short 50 games is. I'm just trying to emphasize the fact that think of what 50 games. This isn't basketball. This isn't hockey.
No.
This is 16 three-gamers. That's it.
And if you do 8 3-gamers just in your own division, like the Mets and Phillies play a home and home 3-game series, that's it. That's all they're going to play one another. Well, there's 24 of your 50 right there. That's just in your division. You do it with the other division, and that's your season. So it's preposterous. And it's where this relationship is. Tried telling you a few weeks ago before our hiatus that there's a lot of mistrust and there's a lot of dislike, period. I mean, they genuinely do not like one another right now. You can't say that about any of the other sports. You really can't. I mean, the NFL, PA, and the NFL just signed a 10-year extension. I mean, the NBA, Chris Paul, LeBron James are buddy-buddy with Adam Silver. They're going to work something out whenever it is that they have to negotiate something again. Even hockey, which at times has gotten contentious, is not nearly as contentious now as baseball. They hate each other. They don't like each other. They don't trust one another. They don't want to do a deal with the other. They are the couple in which if one person comes to the table with an idea, the other side is inherently against it. Why? Because it was her idea or his idea. So therefore, I don't like it. It must suck. That's where they are. So, Mark, imagine the short-term future of this sport. Because, we've said this is the beginning of the 2021/22 CBA negotiation. And if this is where we are now, I mean, imagine this season gets scrapped or it's an absolute joke of a season. That's what gets agreed to, an absolute joke. Well, we begin next year. I mean,
it's why, David, we're not playing 50 games. The Players Association will never agree to it because it will have been deemed the first loss in the 2022 CBA negotiations.
Correct.
This is essentially, you want to call it the prelim, you want to call it the first round of the fight, whatever you want to call it. But whoever gives loses in their own eyes. And the other part of this is no matter how this works out for the 2020 season, David, as you mentioned, the animosity towards both sides, this isn't being used as starting negotiations early. It's separating negotiations early, actually. It's doing the opposite.
And most of you don't pay attention to hockey. But, hockey's had some times here recently where they have not been crazy about one another. But this season has actually brought about Donald Fear, who used to represent the Baseball Players Association, now represents the hockey players. Fear and Bettman have actually discussed a few things during this time. They have worked together to try to salvage their season, and it's actually led to both sides talking about some other issues, like the players playing in the Olympics and other forms of revenue sharing down the road. So they've actually used this opportunity to make their relationship a little bit better. Whereas in baseball, obviously, they are blowing it up. It is an interesting poll question. We didn't even have one yesterday.
No, I couldn't give you that poll question, David. I really couldn't.
I thought it was funny. I did. I thought it was funny. For those just joining us,
it was one of those poll questions that I think was funny on the air. If people start reading it, I don't know how much of a sense of humor they would have had.
No? All right.
That was my fear. When we put losing a wallet up against losing a kidney, and you're more upset about a wallet, I was worried about that.
Right. That was going to be the big question. I've had 3 big losses during our second act. I've lost my phone, I've lost my wallet, and now I've lost a kidney. We were going to grade the losses yesterday in our poll question. I don't know why we didn't do it, to be honest with you. We had a big audience. I think we would have gotten a good response. I think we should have done it. But we could ask the hypothetical, and maybe it's not a hypothetical. Maybe since baseball fan is thinking about it, and sports fans certainly, well, they've got their opinions about a lot of things these days. Whether or not, hey, if baseball scraps the season, are you done with baseball?
All right, I'm in.
That's early nomination.
No, I'm in.
Early nomination. All right. Don't know how we'll word it. Whether they come up with a joke of a season and a 50-game season would be a joke, or whether or not the two sides just can't agree and there is no baseball season. If MLB doesn't play in 2020, are you done with MLB? Because, Mark, I got to be honest. I'm in my mid-50s now. It's a lot easier to move on from something when you're in your mid-50s.
It really is.
I mean, it'd just be like, I can't waste my time with this. If these yahoos, I mean, we've all been in relationships before in which we're like, I care for you, but this is too much work. Or I care for you, but I don't have time for this. I mean, man, oh man, this is more aggravation than it's worth. And you wonder whether or not baseball would turn out to be that sport, particularly since it's a marathon. Baseball's the sport in which they need you to have their hooks into you. It's not the casual sport. It may be to get somebody to go to a Mighty Muscles game. I mean, that to get somebody to go, that's very casual.
And then even at the MLB level, I mean, to go into a ball game is still a great time.
And that's another thing, by the way. You ever been a part of a minor league team that didn't play a season or come close to not playing a season?
God, no.
Okay. I mean, the Mighty Muscles aren't going to play a game this year.
No. Hey.
And in their case, they did renamed and new logo. And, I mean, if you're
Wait a minute. That's it. Think about it. The Mighty Muscles changed their name, and the whole world has gone to hell in a handbasket. When did they make their name change?
I can't blame everything that's gone on the
I
Mighty
am.
Muscles. Oh, well, I know you are. I will say this, though. The Mighty Muscles have a staggering marketing opportunity, the likes of which I don't know if anyone else in the history of professional sports has ever had. What if they change their name again?
I'm for that.
and never play a game as the Mighty
As a
Muscles.
muscle.
Think about that. Think about that marketing opportunity. Think about it from being able to, sell stuff. Hey, what is that you're wearing? Oh, it's the Mighty Muscles. Who are they? Well, actually, they never played. I mean, just think about that, Mark, from an opportunity.
It would make me happy.
Turn a negative into a positive. That could be the ultimate one right there.
I mean, they did it in December. They did it in December, right at the end of 2019, and look what happened in 2020.
That's putting an awful lot on their lap, Mark. I mean, that really is. That is putting an awful lot on their lap. I got to tell you. I mean,
Am I wrong?
A lot's happened.
Am I wrong?
I will grant you that. Well, see, you're very negative on the whole Mighty Muscles. I'm open-minded to it. So, but boy, that's an awful lot on their lap. Let me tell you. Miller and Moulton. 479-5551 is our phone number. That's how you can chime into the show. Call or text in on the Williams & Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line 479-5551. I do think it's an opportunity for them. I do. They could have their third name change in a calendar year, sell some more stuff, have a footnote in American sports history. I think it'd be outstanding. But we shall see. Starting five is next. Miller and Moulton. Top of the morning to you. Thanks for waking up with us here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
We are fighting for your communities.
I'm the guy that fights injustice.
We're giving you a voice.
It's Fox.
We're letting you know that we have your back.
There is a ton of optimism.
Whether it affects your world,
we're all searching for something.
It is true. We are here for your community.
We are excited to join you.
Yes.
And here they are.
We are Fox Sports Radio. And we are here for you.
Marketplace is sponsored by Kronos, helping businesses attract, retain, and engage employees through cloud-based human capital management. Kronos.com. Kronos, workforce innovation that works.
Dial ** 2020. France Eye Care.
Attention community heroes, France Eye Care would like to express our appreciation for all that you do as you serve on the front lines. And that's why we're offering $1,500 off bilateral LASIK for first responders. All EMTs, firefighters, police officers, and critical care workers in hospitals and minor emergency clinics are eligible to receive this benefit through May 31st. Dr. Jonathan France, one of the original pioneers in the field of LASIK surgery, and his expert team of surgeons at France Eye experience better vision and a better life without the hassle of contacts and glasses. In addition to this amazing $1,500 off LASIK special, France Eye Care now offering free LASIK screenings through virtual consultations. Dial ** 2020 from your mobile phone to schedule a virtual consultation at a convenient time for you. Thank you, first responders.
France Eye Care.
Cathedral Roofing Innovations. Now, Hurricane Irma was a long time ago, but believe it or not, problems with tile roofs, they continue to occur as a result. Now, many homeowners are just now feeling the effects of the hidden damage that occurred to their tile roof. Now, whether it's new leaks, cracked, unsecured tiles, these roofs are living on borrowed time. Now, tile roofs, by nature of their design, are susceptible to lift and powerful storms like hurricanes. When this occurs, your tile underlayment can be compromised, but you would not realize it until possibly years later. Now, with Cathedral Roofing Innovations, you get a great roofing company to inspect your roof for any damage. And just because
those that are watching on Twitch, I may move around a little more today during the breaks than normal.
They are the tile experts in Naples.
Final half hour of the show yesterday, I was in a little bit of pain.
Just go to cathedralroofingnaples.com. Cathedralroofingnaples.com.
You talking to me?
No, I'm just talking to anybody who's listening and watching on Twitch.
I was underneath the table. And Seth, I don't care. It's the worst name in the history of sports. I've been pretty consistent that their logo looks like a vagina. Seth told me that franchise is going to come hunt me down. I don't care.
I've been repairing and replacing roofs for 27 years.
I'm a NASCAR fan now.
Integrity, knowledge, and service.
Yeah, really.
Oh, I didn't watch any of the Xfinity race yesterday, and I see Ross Chastain sucked. Did he get wrecked?
He had trouble early.
I was thinking yesterday, I remember old Bristol races when I would watch NASCAR a little bit 15 years ago. And before they changed the rules of how fast you had to be going to get back on the track, I always remember Bristol as the track on the inside where there were cars that basically didn't look like cars that were still running. Getting their laps in. I love that. I mean, no quarter panel on it. I mean, duct tape all over it. I used to love that.
Well, Richard Petty's final race, he got wrecked, and he came back on to run like a final couple laps.
Yep.
And basically the front of his STP was gone.
You can have the best gear and know the best dive spots. If your eyes aren't the best, it's just not the same. And Dr. Scheibo knows that.
Knowing how much Jimbo cares about diving, it was a privilege to fix his vision.
It's great to know that we got eye doctors in our area that care just as much about me as I care about being in the water.
Hi, this is Dr. Scheibel from Community Eye Center. My partner, Dr. Spatafor, and I want to remind everybody, don't be a spreader. The coronavirus is so tiny, 100 million particles fit on the head of a pin. As we run around in our trucks and cars and play golf and go fishing and go to work and do the things we like to do.
That's a great point. I mean, who is Scott still working for the Muscles? Did they lay everybody off, David?
I haven't heard that they laid anyone
off. Or Chris, I mean, not Scott. Chris Peters.
Chris has moved to Jacksonville. He's working for the organization, but he's working out of Jacksonville.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
28 minutes before 7 o'clock, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? Miller and Moulton on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at foxsportsfm.com and broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch TV channels. Chime into the show via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, 479-5551. 479-5551 is how you can have your voice heard, and we always appreciate hearing from you.
Just quickly, do you want this to be if baseball has a mini season or if baseball doesn't have a season?
If MLB does not play in 2020,
there you go.
Will you be done with MLB?
We did get this text, David. He said, spring training is 25 games or so it's an extended spring training. As a lifelong baseball fan, I miss baseball, but I can live without it. Perhaps this will open a door to a wholesale change in the game, much needed changes. And he finishes by saying, I can live on amateur baseball.
Well, tell you what, can we get back to that?
Yes.
In about 10, 15 minutes?
Absolutely. You just gave out the text line. I wanted to encourage people to text. I like to do that by reading their text on the air just to let them know that I care, David.
I know. It's something you've cared a great deal for a long time. And by a long time, we mean 2020. 479-5551, the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. Time now for
the starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton starting five. Fox Sports Radio and foxsportsfm.com.
Welcome back, David. You're number one.
Yes, and for those watching on YouTube or Twitch TV, you could see Miller and Moulton off to a great start. One has already told the other that he is number one, which is kind of where the baseball players and owners are with one another right now. All right, you're number one. No, you're number one. To review, the baseball owners said, let's play an 82-game season. The players said, oh, come on. We can do better than that. How about 114 games over the course of 4 months? And the owners came back in 24 hours and said, yeah, how about 50? If you're insistent that you're not going to give us any money back and you want prorated salaries, we'll give you prorated salaries over 50 games instead of 162. How about that? So that's where the two sides are right now. And essentially, the two sides this week, in theory, would have worked out a deal. so that by next week they could show up in Arizona and Florida and start working out, or wherever it is they're going to show up, maybe in their home cities, work out for 3 or so weeks, and then get ready to go around July 4th weekend. Floyd Mayweather, it turns out, is going to pay for the funeral of the late George Floyd. Mayweather's done this a few times. Shaq has done it quite a lot throughout his life. But Mayweather has stepped forward and will pay for the funeral of George Floyd. Football news, and there was a lot of it yesterday. First off, Mark, Pat Dye died at the age of 80. Pretty big figure in the Southeastern Conference. He was head coach and AD at Auburn for a decade plus. He went 6-6 against Alabama in his 12 years as head coach, which is not easy to do there, as we all know. He's a member of the College Football Hall of Fame, has been since 2005. Mark, of all the things that Pat Dye, and it is Jordan-Hare Stadium, but they play on Pat Dye Field, if you've ever been to the Plains of Auburn. But of all the things that Pat Dye will be most fondly remembered for, Pat Dye was the man responsible for getting the Iron Bowl out of Birmingham. Up until the late 80s, that game was always played at Legion Field. And Auburn fans were like, well, this is an Alabama home game. I mean, can't we do a home and home? Do we have to? And it's the reason why it was called the Iron Bowl. Birmingham, the Iron City, hence the Iron Bowl. Pat Dye, late in his tenure, I believe 1989 was the first time that Auburn was able to get the game on campus. And fittingly, first time they got Alabama in the Plains, the Tide were undefeated, number 2 in the country, and Auburn beat them. And the rest, as they say, is history.
My favorite little side footnote about Pat Dye is Auburn and Alabama are synonymous. When you say one, you say the other. But the Auburn-Georgia rivalry is actually the oldest rivalry in the South.
Correct.
And when the rivalry was at its peak, there were these two running backs named Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker playing for their respective schools. And you had Pat Dye, the coach of Auburn, who went to school at the University of Georgia. And you had Vince Dooley, the head coach of Georgia, who went to school at the University of Auburn. And that's my favorite little side note to Pat Dye whenever I think about that. And the fact that the two schools have the same exact fight song just is fantastic. But what he did at Auburn, without Pat Dye, I don't know if Auburn is who they are today.
He won 99 games in 12 years at Auburn. You got to remember, they only played 11-game seasons then. So to average 8 1/3 wins a year, well, you were only playing an 11-game season when Pat Dye was coaching there from 81 through 92. And as I mentioned, went 6-6 against Alabama, was the gentleman responsible for recruiting and signing Bo Jackson, which obviously they remember kind of fondly in that little part of the world. Pat Dye, who was found out, actually contracted the coronavirus, but was asymptomatic, died of liver and kidney failure yesterday at the age of 80. Mark, I did not realize this. LSU had never scheduled Grambling or Southern in football. A couple of historically black colleges in the state of Louisiana. LSU had never played them. They will beginning next year. They'll essentially one of those early season games, week 2, they'll start off with a big week 1 game. Week 3 will probably be the beginning of their conference season, but they will host Grambling in 2021 and they will host Southern in 2022. And it is considered a pretty big deal in that state that this is happening. So just a little footnote, Grambling and Southern on LSU's schedule, first time ever. One other college football note from yesterday, fairly big story. Clemson wide receiver Justin Ross. He was their number 1 returning wide receiver. He had a breakout performance in the win over Alabama 2 years ago when they won the national championship as a freshman. He's going to miss the entire year, and his career is now in jeopardy. He has what's being described as a congenital fusion of his spine. He is already projected as a first-round pick. He's having surgery Friday in Pittsburgh. Dabo held a presser yesterday about it, and when asked, said, well, the kid's going to have a decision to make in January. He's basically going to decide whether he wants to come back, play another year of college. Does he want to go straight to the NFL draft, or is he done playing football? Now, Dabo is being optimistic, in which he says, right now the talk is that he will be able to continue his football career. There are not many people, though, who have this condition who then continue to have an NFL career. So a big loss for Clemson, and Justin Ross's career is now in doubt with the news yesterday. And, Mark, it's not exactly the baseball players and owners, but make no mistake, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are very much in a stare down. And let's not sugarcoat this at all. Now, I think the Cowboys have a lot more options than what Dak and his people think. But July 15th is the drop dead date as to whether or not these two sides can get an extension done this year or not. If they don't get a deal done by July 15th, then Dak's going to play on the exclusive franchise tag. He's going to make $31.5 million. It counts in its entirety against the Cowboys cap. And also, it means that Dak is 1 year closer to unrestricted free agency. I mean, you can only play for 2 years on a tag. And so if he ends up playing this year on a tag, then in theory, Dak's a year away from being able to walk from the Cowboys, period, and go anywhere. But I don't know about you, Mark. And the holdup is...
I'm not a Dak guy like you are. I don't...
Well, I think Dak's a good to very good quarterback. But
and I think he's an average to good. I don't think he has that next level that you do.
But I would not give in to Dak if I were the Cowboys here, is my point. And apparently the big holdup is term. I mean, I give Dak and his people credit. They actually want to sign a shorter deal. They're looking around realizing, hey, this whole quarterback market, as soon as somebody, comes to the top of the list, the whole market changes.
Well,
and so why do we want to sign a 5-year deal? Let's sign a 4-year deal, and I'm 26 years old. How about if I get to renegotiate this sucker when I'm 29, 30?
And if there's any change to the current CBA, which is in place for 10 years, if there is any change, the one thing that has been talked about a lot lately is putting quarterbacks in their own separate category for the salary cap. Now, I don't know if that happens in the CBA, but the way it's been talked about, I think it's at least possible. And that's what I think Dak's going on a little bit, David.
So Dak wants 4 years. The Cowboys are insisting on 5. Reportedly, the Cowboys have offered 5 for $35 a year. Reportedly, the Cowboys have put 5 for $1.75 on the table. They're guaranteeing the first 3 years of the deal. So they're guaranteeing 105. And Dak has said no. This is where I'm coming from if I'm the Cowboys. Tom Brady's in Tampa. All right. That, to me, is a game changer. Let's take a look. Matthew Stafford, who's from the Dallas area, by the way. He's 31 years old. Aaron Rodgers, in which the Packers, for God knows what reason, decided they wanted to end this relationship sooner rather than later. I mean, the thought is that Aaron's got 2 more years as the quarterback in Green Bay because the Packers need to put Jordan Love on the field by year 3 to see what they have to then decide after year 3 if they're going to pick up his 5th-year option at $20+ million a year. I think, the Derek Carr, you name it. There are veteran quarterbacks playing now. Jameis Winston. All right. Whatever scenario you want to come up with, I think the Cowboys can move on from Dak, where, Mark, up until about an hour and a half ago, the thought of you being able to move on from your franchise quarterback was, what are you, crazy? You can't afford to get rid of that person. I'm not so sure.
No,
anymore.
The Brady dynamic changed everything. And it started before that when Peyton left because of luck. And now we've had 2 quarterbacks, the 2 most iconic quarterbacks of this generation, will have both played for multiple teams. One won a Super Bowl with both. We'll see if the other can. That changes everything.
So if I'm the Cowboys, I'm holding firm with Dak. Because the other thing is, quite frankly, Dak, don't get me wrong, you've played well. I mean, your first 4 years of your career have been outstanding. Let's be honest. We drafted you in the middle of the 4th round. I mean, to say you've overachieved would be a gross understatement. All right. But with that said, we've won one playoff game with you. And we want to win something here. We haven't won something here in a while. Quarter century, in fact. We need to win something. You want to get everything you want? Win me something. How about play for something? Then I'll give you a blank piece of paper and a pen. But it is fascinating, Mark. Name me the negotiation with Jerry Jones in which Jerry Jones drew the line in the sand. Jerry relents. Jerry pays. You think about it over the last 10 years. I mean, Jerry drew a line in the sand with Emmitt Smith. It lasted 2 weeks. Jerry pays people. And he's drawing a line in the sand with Dak Prescott.
Well, and skip Emmitt Smith. He already paid Zeke. I mean, you don't have to go back to the last generation. Go back to his current running back. He already paid him.
Just paid Amari Cooper.
Right. I mean, he
paid Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah.
Paid Jalen Smith, the linebacker. I mean, Jerry pays
So don't worry about the time when he was winning. Talk about right now. He's paying now, David.
Zach Martin. I mean, Jerry pays people. And he's drawing a line with Dak Prescott. And at 13 minutes before the hour, that mark is...
The starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton Starting 5. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
479-5551 is how you can chime in via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. 479-5551. Miller and Moulton. David Sampson will join us next hour to talk about this baseball mess. And Pat Kerwin will join us in a little more than 90 minutes here on Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program.
If MLB does not play in 2020, will you come back as a fan in 2021? Yes, no, I left a long time ago.
One rebound. The
like
one
it.
steal, and 2 of those teams won the championship. The steal against Malone, and then the jumper over Russell that won it for him. That's when you want great players to be great. Mike was taking the shot. Get out of the way.
Dan Patrick. The Dan Patrick Show. Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Did you get 1 or 2 or 7 of Cassio's rants about The Last Stand? Or The Last Dance?
No.
Oh, my God. I don't know what bothered John Moore, The Last Dance. I don't even know if he watched and how much he enjoyed it, but he hated the fact that National Sports Talk Radio, for basically a month, did a month's worth of programming all on Michael Jordan, Monday through Friday, too. They wouldn't just come back and talk about it on Monday. All right. He would call me in a fit of rage on a Thursday, okay, ranting and raving about what Dan Patrick is still talking about The Last Dance. I'm like, John, I don't know what to tell you. It's easy.
He's a basketball guy who covered Michael Jordan.
And John's like, yeah, but there's nothing to say. I'm like, John, that's not the point. First off, we have no sports right now.
There's nothing to say. That's the point, John. I mean, unless we're breaking down breakfast breads, there's not much out there.
I did like that poll question.
I voted English muffin for what it's worth.
Yeah, I voted bagel.
Bagel won big. Ended up being on Friday night, we had some friends over from the neighborhood who have twins. And, it's funny. David, they met at Stetson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You sent me that.
Yep, they met at Stetson. But she knows our former employers rather well. Born and raised here.
Oh, wow. Well, listen, if you meet at Stetson, I mean, it's tough to go to Stetson and not meet everybody.
No, I mean, she knows everyone around here.
No, I know.
Yeah, but, But we had to talk about because they want to open a bagel. There's apparently Fort Myers Bagels is their own place, and apparently they're incredible. I've never been there.
Owner of DR Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida.
But it's like the real bagel store where the guy shows up at 2 a.m. to start making bagels.
Call us today for a free inspection. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
Speaking of bread, is that off? Are you allowed to have a slice of bread here and there?
Here and there.
Pool need a checkup? Call the doctor. The Pool Doctor.
Hi, Dr. Mark here. Do the math. Taking care
But
of
it's
your
not
pool
good
is
for your
probably not
sugar.
a good use of your time and money. Free $50 Bonefish gift
Right.
certificates when you sign up for one of our award-winning
Now
weekly service plans.
you'll have to and I'll remember this if you ever need it written down because there's different kinds of bread out there. Like Eve always has this sprouted bread, which is supposedly better than others for that very reason. I don't know if that's true.
574-1133. State certified CBC 057088.
Now back to Miller and Moulton.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Eight minutes before 7 o'clock, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming foxsportsfm.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch TV channels.
We have a poll question up regarding baseball. If MLB does not play in 2020, will you come back as a fan in 2021? Yes, no, or I left a long time ago. Go to that Mark Miller or the David Moulton for response.
Right. I have to tweet that out.
Take your time, no worries. I mean, you are coming back from cancer. You have a window. You can get this done by 7:30, and we're good. But you wanted to get into the text that we received, so I want to reread it. The Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text line 479-5551. We received this, basically saying it was an extended spring training. As a lifelong baseball fan, I miss baseball, but I can live without it. Perhaps this will open the door to wholesale changes in the game, much needed changes. And he says he can live on amateur baseball. And you said you wanted to get back to that, so I wanted to read that to you and wanted to see what it was that you wanted to get back to from it.
What I'm curious about is what kind of changes does he want? I mean, what is it when he's talking about changes? I mean, from a fan standpoint, what kind of change are you looking for from that sport?
I think we're all looking for less strikeouts. And I don't know with how we're training players to play how that stops. When we're into, we'd rather hit a home run than, you said it yesterday, David. The analytics don't support stealing bases. Well, stealing bases and hitting runs are fun.
Yes, it's excitement.
Guys are moving.
Correct.
Three-run home runs are exciting for the shot being hit out, but it's not exciting. They trot around the bases. There's no baseball being played.
Right. There's been an argument made for a long time. The most exciting play in baseball is a triple. I mean, that's exciting.
It's like a double eagle. You don't, what do you see the least of on the Pro Tour? You don't see a double eagle ever. You don't see a lot of triples. I mean, how many triples are hit in a year in baseball? A couple hundred?
Yeah, I'd say it's about right. I mean, usually a team leader's got about 6.
Right.
But, I mean, is that what you think that texter is referring to on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text line 479-5551 when he's talking about changes? It changes to the actual product, which, quite frankly, I don't see the players and owners being able to negotiate. I mean, this is where also they're at complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Manfred is big on pace of play. The players are like, leave it alone.
By the way, quick footnote. Last time there were more than 1,000 triples hit in a season was 1983. We had 795. The last stat I got was for 2017. But basically between 8 and 950 on average per year, both leagues.
So each team's averaging around 25 or so triples a year for a season. So one a week. If you think about it, baseball season's 26 weeks normally. So if you follow a team, you'll see one triple a week. Wow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first off, guys don't run the way they used to in baseball. They'd rather have them bigger than faster.
And they're encouraged not to, that the stolen base is not worth, the risk of the stolen base is not worth it. Hang out where you are. I did do something yesterday, and I don't know if it's because it was the middle of the day and I was bored. I was a little wiped out from doing the show yesterday. I did something, Mark, that, believe it or not, you would think I would do a lot more of, but I don't do a lot of. And I watched an old baseball game yesterday. I watched the Marlins beat the Yankees in Game 6 in 2003 because I had seen a footnote a couple of weeks ago in which somebody said, you know, Josh Beckett doesn't get enough credit for this pitching performance. And it was on 3 days rest. I mean, the Marlins had the 3-2 series lead. The Yankees are coming home. They got Pettit and Mussina lined up. And Jack McKeon goes, you know, pushes his horse forward and says, hey, I got a chance to win with you. I ain't holding back for a day. And he pushes Beckett on 3 days rest forward. And they got a stat at the beginning of the broadcast that, like, in the last however many years in the playoffs on 3 days rest, that starters are like 6-20 with an ERA in the sixes. And Beckett goes out and throws a 5-hitter.
In Yankee Stadium.
Correct. Right.
And that was Yankee Stadium.
Yes, that
was Yankee Stadium.
Right. As Jeter famously said, this place has ghosts. Yes. So I treated myself to that yesterday. But for the record, in the poll question, I voted no. I would not come back if there's no baseball this year. Miller and Moulton.
Did you know we were that close?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if you had it up in front of you. Cause
I punched it up about when we were talking about the stadium. So I punched it up with about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I didn't know if you, because sometimes I'll hit it and it goes away.
To Fifth Avenue South, some protesters punched police vehicles and threw items at officers. Smaller protests in Fort Myers Monday remained peaceful. Collier County commissioners will decide today whether to lift restrictions on county beaches. The chairman says the plan is to restore beaches to their normal hours. They'll also discuss changing 4th of July celebrations to accommodate social distancing. Governor Ron DeSantis is extending the moratorium on evictions. That order was set to expire today. It will now last through July 1st.
Good.
Trustwing News, Southwest Florida's news leader.
Good.
Well, they had to. I mean, you can't.
No,
have
David, you don't. I mean, if we've proven anything here in the last couple of weeks, government doesn't have to do anything anymore. No offense. Should and have to.
No, that's true.
The good news is Kobe Cooling has a 100% Nate
That's true.
certified team of mechanics that actually fix air
But I would say if he wants to
call for
take,
service,
more heat off of himself and the unemployment
Fiasco.
system and how it performed, I mean,
and it's just getting worse, apparently. Jesus.
you
see the MLS is going to get locked out?
Yeah, I saw that.
Like when you were going through this, I had to pull it because I read it quickly this morning. I didn't read all the details, but you're going through the baseball. I'm like, if we have enough time, I at least got to bring up in the starting five that they're going to lock the MLS guys out.
Which, of course, begs the question, why?
We're the company your neighbors use. License CACO 57313.
They want a decision by the owners want a decision by today, or they will sanction a lockout.
Okay, what kind of decision?
The player statement detailed that they voted in favor of economic concessions for 2020, modifications to the CBA, their agreement to participate in the summer tournament in Orlando, salary reduction.
Here's what's trending now.
So what is it the owners
Hang on,
still want?
I'm trying to see. The MLS says they've already given the players the best offer and are not budging. The league wants the players to take an 8.75% pay cut, while the players have agreed to a 7.5%. So we're arguing over 1.25%. And it says, with players making big concessions across the board, the fact that MLS shot the offer down so quickly suggests both sides still have a long way to go. I do think that the MLS tournament in Orlando, from a standpoint of television watchability, I think might get some eyeballs. I'm not saying big eyeballs, but I'm saying if soccer, there's nothing on, baseball's not on, basketball and hockey aren't on, and we're giving you 3 games in a row from Orlando in a tournament-type setting, I don't know. I think it would do 2-3 times what they normally do.
That's it. Miller
really upset that my daughter. I mean, I'm not talking about getting a 6. I'm just talking about tripling what their normal. Their .2 is a .6. Their .2 is a 1.
Well, we need to explain to her the pilot program, and we need 25 hours of programming a week. So you need to deliver your 12 minutes a day, 5 times a week, because that's an hour, honey.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
All guests appear on the Goldberg Noon Abraham hotline. Goldberg-law.com.
Oh, I like it. It's up to you now. It's up to you. I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
And as we approach a couple minutes past 7 o'clock on this Tuesday morning, the 2nd of June, thanks for being with us, Miller and Moulton. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming foxsportsfm.com, broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch TV channels. They are free. Sign up for them, particularly the Twitch TV channel. It is interactive, not only during the show, but during the commercial breaks. You can chime into this show via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. 479-5551 is our number. 479-5551 is how your voice can be heard.
You know, we've always kind of gone Act 1 and Act 2, this being right. Act 2. I don't feel like this is Act 3, but this is like Act 2A, if you know what I mean. Anytime one of the hosts leaves the show for 2 weeks with cancer and comes back, I do believe you started a new beginning.
Really?
Yes, very much so.
Because we've taken a couple of weeks off before.
I got you, but not for one of the hosts having cancer.
I understand. I have to admit, I feel a little uncomfortable about throwing the C word out there.
Really? You had a kidney removed, David?
I understand that because right now, knock on wood, and I know this sounds a little flippant, but in my world anyway, I mean, obviously I was walking around with a cancerous kidney and didn't know it, but, you know, I was aware of cancer for 5 days. You know, I was notified on a Sunday, had the kidney removed on a Thursday. As of right now, you know, all of the cancer went with it. And so, I said to a friend of mine who's a cancer survivor, has battled it twice for many years. I go, I don't feel very comfortable, referring to myself as a cancer survivor when in my world I had it for 5 days. And he's like, oh, no, you're on the list.
You're damn right you are. You're damn right you are, because you know what, David? Between now and however many years down the road, you're going to come in contact with a lot of other people that, whether it's them or their friends or their family, are going to be afflicted by cancer. And you're going to be able to give them some calming words. And people need those when this happens to their family. So do not take what happened lightly. Take it as proudly as you did, because you like someone texted yesterday, Moulton must have a little hockey player in him because he's back on the air in 2 weeks after having a kidney removed.
I have always said, for as self-deprecating as we get on this show, I have always been much tougher than I looked.
So I thought you'd at least like that. But I bring this up because whether this is Act 1, Act 2, Act 2A, Act 3, a first definitely happened during the last commercial break. A lot of things have happened with these 2 weeks off. I have become a pseudo NASCAR watcher. I'm not going to call myself a NASCAR fan, but David, yesterday I got in the car. I have Sirius Radio, and when I went to run out on Sunday, I put the race on just for the little drive because I was watching it. And I left it on. So I got in the car yesterday, and NASCAR Radio was on. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't change the station.
Unbelievable. You gearhead, you. Wow. Now, and we joke, obviously, but this is what we spent most of the first hour talking about. This is an opportunity that baseball is missing. I mean, if NASCAR, and you've been as anti-left turns as anybody with a microphone.
Anybody in the country that has a microphone.
Right.
Yep.
And so And now, because of the circumstances, and we all know what they are, and you're desperate for some sort of sports, and fortunately, the little Ross Chastain hook, and it brought you in, and this is what we're talking about with baseball. Hey, get your damn act together, start playing games, and who knows who you may actually bring on board.
But if we deem baseball as being ignorant, stupid, asinine, whatever you want to associate with them for what's going on right now. I will not talk about this for more than 30 seconds, I promise.
Boy, when you go asinine, though, that's big.
But it is.
That's
but
big.
that
being a dirty word.
But that pales in comparison to what basically a minor league is doing. And that happened during our commercial break. A first on Miller and Moulton. Yes. We had a 4-minute MLS lockout talk.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen.
Because
it's another reason to sign up for Miller and Moulton Twitch TV channel, because where are you going to get 4 minutes of MLS lockout talk?
They may lock out the players today. This is the MLS. This is the league that has been, in my opinion, like a rocket. In the last 10 years, they have doubled the number of teams. They're getting people to watch. They're signing the occasional has-been from a European league. You've added teams nearly everywhere. They're drawing well. The league is taking a foothold in our country. It's not the NHL yet. I think there's a point in which they could get in their stratosphere. I do. But they're talking about locking out.
Right.
They were going to have a little tournament in Orlando. And again, I know no one cares. But if I'm watching NASCAR, and I'm guessing there are others that are watching a little bit of NASCAR, or maybe watching a little Korean baseball. The guy from the Big Lead is always talking about Korean baseball that I follow on Twitter, and I find it pretty funny that he's got a favorite team, and he just needs his baseball. Well, there's soccer fans out there, and I know some are watching the German league, and I know the Premier League's about to start.
Bundesliga!
Very nice.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I practiced it right before I was, fallen. All right, did a couple of national shows. It was the only thing that was in the sports updates was the Bundesliga.
Say that again?
Bundesliga.
Bundesliga. All right.
Oh, I think it's Bundesliga.
Bundesliga.
Oh. Yeah, I think it's a Liga.
Always like a Lisa more than a Liga.
Yeah, I think it's Bundesliga.
Bundesliga. But if they played that little tournament in Orlando, I actually think there'd be a handful of eyeballs on it. I'm not going nuts, but I'm saying if I'm watching NASCAR and you're a soccer fan or a sports fan or your girl plays soccer, you going to throw that on for half a minute? Probably.
How many of these conversations have taken place throughout Southwest Florida in the last couple months where the one spouse says to the other, hey, you want to throw some sports on? And the other looks at him and goes, there is no sports to throw on. I mean, my wife has said it to me 100 times. Hey, you want to throw some sports on? Yeah, I'd love to. There's nothing to throw on. If all of a sudden, and what have we talked about with soccer? The whole thing's 2 hours.
Yes.
The whole thing. Little 5-8 minute pre-game, first half, halftime, second half, post-match live interview. Thanks a lot, Rowdy fans. Bye-bye. 7 to 9. Boom. There you go. Let's do it. What the heck?
I just don't if I'm working for this league, I'm probably fired. Because I'm pounding on tables right now going, what in the hell? And basically it looks like they're off by 1.25% of what the players want, because the players took a reduction of, they want to take a reduction of 8.75%. The players want to take a 7.5%. So they're off by 1.25%. And they're going to lock them out today unless they get that back. And they appear to be firm on this.
Okay.
Kiss your Beckham. I mean, like, Beckham, you don't even have a team yet. You need to run to these owners and shut them up.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
You're going to crush this Miami franchise right now. Unbelievable.
Come on now. We could be Major League Baseball for a month.
And especially with what baseball's got going on. Get your ass on television.
Well, and also, I mean, I am surprised that hockey and NBA are dragging their feet as long as they are.
Me too.
Especially the NBA. I'm shocked, actually. Now, I think it's strategic. I think they've decided that, you know what, we we want our season to actually take place during a certain period of time. And they're already thinking ahead to next year when they're going to have their draft and then, this, that, and the other thing. And then also when we're going to start the 2021 season. So I think it's calculated, but I am surprised that a league, NASCAR's, I mean, they've been running races for 3 weeks now.
Without really a problem, I have not heard. Has there been anybody that's tested positive from a team? Because I have not heard that.
One thing I will say, speaking of testing positive from a team, was that a couple of athletes showed up back on their college campus yesterday, and they were tested, and they tested positive. And so they were immediately taken out of the equation and all that. So that's the first, test, if you will, of moving forward. How are we going to do this, et cetera, et cetera. So 479-5551, 479-5551, Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing, text and talk line. David Sampson to talk baseball in about 15 minutes time. Our poll question is baseball related. The players and the owners are just being infantile. I mean, I think the owners more than the players, but the bottom line is that between the two of them, I mean, if one's being an infant, the other's being no older than a teenager, and they're about as far apart as you can be. And so it's a real possibility that there won't be a Major League Baseball season this year. So we ask you, if no MLB in 2020, will you come back in 2021?
David, you earlier in the show tried to compare this to a relationship, and I think you hit the nail on the head right there. This is two brothers fighting. One's 5, one's 7. I think that's more
problem. The 7-year-old's acting 5. The bigger brother's the one acting more infantile.
And the other problem is that mom can't come in, crack them both on the hind end, and fix it. There's no one outside that can come in and fix this problem. Whereas,
right.
You are right, at least in the husband and wife. I mean, there's no marriage counselor. There's no arbitrator. There's no one here. To our poll question, answer on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text line. I'll watch the playoffs randomly if the games are on antenna. Basically, you must have cut the cord. I stopped watching regular season many years ago, mainly out of boredom. Pace of play, so many throws to first, so many pitching stages. I will still bet on it, no matter if they play this season or not.
There you go. There you go. And Mark, it is something that we brought up many a time, but you wonder, is this the ultimate saving grace for any and all sport, Mark? Is the gambling component in America? A, the legalized gambling factor is bigger than it's ever been. And B, legalized sports gambling is going to be bigger than ever, particularly in the next 12 months. If you missed it, we brought it up late in yesterday's show. One of the things that Mark and I believe is going to come out of the coronavirus 2020 is another massive wave of states during 2021 legalizing sports gambling, because all of these states are going to have huge budget shortfalls because of the economic mess that we're now in. And what is the quickest way to raise cash? It's a sin tax of some kind, and gambling's going to be it. And so we are going to have legalized sports gambling. My guess is by the 2021 football season, we're going to have it in a minimum of 35 states.
Well, there is a website or a site on the Action Network. They're a Sirius channel and Musburgers thing. That I'm sorry, the Action Network was one Darren Ravel's with.
Right.
But they have their projections, and they list Florida as a state who they believe will do it in 2021, even though of all the votes that have come down. There is back work going on in our state legislature trying to get this pushed forward.
Yeah, Governor DeSantis was back channeling shortly after taking office. And in 2019, he nearly pulled it off. He ran out of time. And so he tabled it for another day. But he was working behind the scenes on a deal with the Seminoles to to legalize sports gambling in this state.
And I'm going to kind of interact text with what we're talking about. We got another texter here on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text line. Says, want to start by saying welcome back, David. Been listening for 14 years. Says, let's rock 14 more if you're up to it. Said, I was supposed to be working for the Muscles this summer as I needed extra income. I want baseball back. Minor league baseball is a convenient thing. No majors, no minors. I'll survive without it this summer. But going forward, he says, I'm a teacher, and there's talking about some serious budget cuts due to COVID.
Yep.
And he also finishes, by the way, the woman that I worked with during spring training would love a name change as they declare the female anatomy logo disgusting. Let's do the rename. Never play a game as.
Well, I threw that out there in the first hour for those that missed it, in which I said I think the Mighty Muscles have a chance, if they want, obviously, but they have a chance to do something unique in the history of literally American sport. Change your name. Get rid of all the old merchandise, sell the new merchandise, but then you have a year in which you don't play a game. And then before you will actually play your game in 2021, change your name again. All right. And I'll tell you what, if anybody's out there for the organization, spend 30 days, do some research. Mighty Muscles versus Grouper. All right. Seriously. And I know you did research in getting the name Mighty Muscle and all that.
Yeah, but you hired a company from California to try to find a product that's here. You screwed this up 6 ways, but sideways.
Put it up as a poll question. Honestly, do it however you want to do it. All right. But I do think you have a stunning marketing opportunity. I really do. And your Mighty Muscle stuff would literally be collector's item-ish. I mean, the Darren Ravels of the world would spend good money to have this. I mean, they really would.
And you're not selling any this year anyhow.
Well, right. And it'd be an interesting, you could have quite the footnote in American sports history.
But back to the one point in this, when he talked about hearing, as a teacher, hearing that there are big budget cuts coming because of COVID. And they led the news off with it last night in Lee County schools of budget cuts coming. David, how do you make up for budget cuts? Gambling taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going politics here, but I'm just being realistic. If that's a fact, if what this gentleman is texting us is factual, and I know that it is because I watched it on the news last night, this is part of the driving force of they're going to be sitting there trying to figure out, they don't want to lose, despite what anybody thinks about different government sides, I don't think they want to take money away from schools. There's only so much in the pie.
Yeah, now you could argue that we should be putting more into the pie, and we should take some of what's in this pie and put it over in this pie.
Separate discussion.
Also, right, exactly. And think of the irony, though. I mean, this will be as political as I get. But think of the irony. What is the one thing that in the last 100 or so days that we have a newfound appreciation for who? Teachers, right? Because many person in the household has had to do some teaching to finish this year. And so so think of the irony. At the exact moment that we have a bit of a newfound appreciation for our teachers, we're then going to hit local school boards with massive cuts. And if a way to prevent that is sports gambling revenue, and you may be against it, there are a decent number of people who don't like the thought of it, think that it leads to other ills in society, and you're against it. I get it. But this is as real as reality gets here. And we're the third most populous state in the country. I mean, you want to talk about raising some revenue. Wow.
Not to mention, during March Madness, we're at the peak point of season.
Right. And quite frankly, with things that have happened in other parts of the country, people haven't stopped moving here. In fact, if anything, it's only going to increase. And so it's just, so when we talk sports gambling, and we have, for the record, for those that are fairly recent converts to Miller and Moulton, we go back over a decade, and it was always financially driven. It was always literally for this reason that we said we are going to get to a budget shortfall situation in which there's just too much cash sitting there, in which somebody goes, We wouldn't have any problems if we just legalized sports gambling.
Schools and infrastructure. David and I have been saying this for nearly 15 years.
It was our platform.
Yes, that and weed.
We didn't have the guts
and
to
weeds about legal.
That was our platform.
Yeah.
Legalize sports gambling, regulate and tax the hell out of marijuana, and we were going to have the best roads and the best schools and the highest paid teachers in the country. That was our joke political platform. We'd spend 3 minutes on it. We'd go back to sports.
And we've been this way for 15 years. We've not deviated from this, not one bit. The world's come to us as opposed to us going to the world on this one. And that's why when I read that text and then looking at what the Action Network's been talking about, what DeSantis has been doing on the back channels, it is the perfect storm for sports gambling where it was not in states and maybe wasn't as close as you would have wanted wherever you may be. I think you will see in 2021, 15 states the Action Network's talking about adding in 2021. 15.
Right. 15, right, which would get us to what, about 35?
And Ohio, Maryland, Massachusetts, we're trying to get it on for 2020. So that will be possibly 18 states in the next 18 months.
I mean, once again, I don't want to get political here, but if you're a governor, let's just say, of our state, I mean, this to me is worthy of an emergency session. I think it would be, I don't want to say criminal, but, how sad would it be that everything that we've endured and now we were to have massive cuts in education all across the state? I mean, let's have a special session. Let's pass this sucker and let's start generating this revenue literally by football season. Come on, let's go. Like, people aren't going to bet on football in the state of Florida.
Right. We had to say goodbye to our teachers yesterday. Yesterday was my little drive-through after the show. I had to take my daughter, and our goodbye, and, I adore my daughter's kindergarten teacher. I will literally, if people can nominate teachers for a golden apple, I would nominate her in a heartbeat. The work she's done through this has been second to none. And yesterday, my daughter got to say goodbye through a mask, basically like going through a drive-through. Here's all the stuff you had in your cubby. Here's the stuff we had from the school. Stop by next year when you walk down the halls. And we're going to throw these people out, or we're going to make them spend more money off their own hip to do the things they've been doing.
Come on. We need to be better than that, don't you think?
In a lot of things. That's one.
Miller
There's bigger ones, too.
And Moulton. 23 minutes past the hour. David Sampson, former president of the Marlins, will talk the baseball mess and a never-before-told story, at least on this show.
It is an all-timer. I heard him tell it on another network a few weeks ago. I tweeted him and said, plan on retelling this story when we have you on. It is something.
David Sampson with that story next here on Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for being with us. Pat Kerwin an hour away here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
James Harrison's talking to Barstool Sports, came out and said, 10 years ago, I lit this guy up for the Cleveland Browns, knocked him out of the game.
Hey, are you guys going to make the phone call, or you want me to make the phone call?
I think, and Mark stepped away, but I think, Giro, that you'll make it.
You discover it 10 years ago.
Okay, just let me know.
I discovered it now.
Colin Cowherd.
If you want me to make it.
New on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Great news, Southwest Florida. Below invoice employee pricing at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. That's right. Below invoice pricing on Chrysler Pacificas, Jeep Wranglers, Jeep Gladiators, and heavy-duty Ram trucks. Over 1,500 new and certified pre-owned vehicles in stock. Loaded, luxurious Grand Cherokee Limited lease. 0 down, $269 per month. That's right. Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited. 0 down, $269 per month. Plus at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, you can drive payment-free for 4 months, interest-free for 6 years.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Are you calling or is Giro?
I am.
Okay, well, all right. Sorry, Giro. Mark will call.
Thank you.
My daughter now has learned, it's a laptop that was always plugged in at her little desk.
Right.
So she, figured out it's a laptop and I can unplug it. But she used to just do it to watch videos. She now, instead of doing work at her desk, she grabs the computer, goes right back into bed.
Really?
Hurricane Irma was a long time ago, but believe it or not,
and we were talking about office space that was going to be lost.
fact, some homeowners are just now feeling the effects of the hidden damage that occurred.
Let me know when we get to a minute, Giro.
Now, whether it's new leaks, cracked, unsecured tiles, these roofs are living on borrowed time. Now, tile roofs, by nature of their design, are...
Oh, I'm sure it is political.
Powerful storms like hurricanes. When this occurs, your tile underlayment can be compromised.
What has DraftKings stock done over the past 4 or 5 weeks? Because I know a lot of the gambling stocks has been dying hard because no one's gambling.
Right.
CJ, I don't, I mean...
For any damage, and just because you don't have leaks doesn't mean you don't have issues. Just go to Cathedral.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't be buying them, by the way.
Well, that's...
They are the tile experts in Naples, and they will start the inspection process right away. Just go to cathedralroofingnaples.com. Cathedralroofingnaples.com.
License number CCC 1331928.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is D.R. Martineau.
Dan Martineau here, owner of D.R. Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida. I've been repairing and replacing roofs for 27 years. We operate with integrity, knowledge, and service. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
Oh, new high.
Number CCC 13269.
How is DraftKings stock soaring? Holy shit.
The name you need to know is D.R. Martineau.
I'm a busy person. Catch the show anytime. Check out Miller and
We a minute away?
and subscribe to the
Oh, my God.
Even in my 80s, every dive is
Could have got it at
exciting and
13 in
enjoyable.
January.
I
It's at
developed
40
cataracts
right now.
Years ago, I couldn't see well underwater. You can have the best gear and know the best dive spots. If your eyes aren't the best, it's just not the same.
Giro, are we a minute away?
Knowing how much Jimbo cares about
in 10
diving,
seconds.
it was a
All right,
privilege to
perfect.
fix his vision.
It's great to know that we got eye doctors in our area that care just as much about
Just give me a hit on levels when we get started, Giro.
being in the water.
All right.
Hi, this is Dr. Scheibel from Community Eye Center. My partner, Dr. Spatafor, and I want to remind everybody, don't be a spreader. The coronavirus is so tiny, 100 million particles fit on the head of a pin. As we run around in our trucks and cars and play golf and go fishing and go to work and do the things we like to do, we are spreading the virus. The virus can only move with us. Over 65, diabetes, COPD, all these folks...
Good morning.
severely by this
Good morning, David. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. Hey, we're going to start. I've got to have you retell that story that I heard in the first hour in Levitard that I watched on Twitter. I've never laughed that hard in my life about that bus.
You talking about the
Oh,
bus
my
story?
God. Got to understand, David, I was a minor league hockey broadcaster. I've ridden those buses most of my life.
I'm happy to do anything you want.
Oh, that was,
for your
it was just gold. I've just gold.
Thank you, sir. It's a tough needle to thread these days on sports radio, but I am with you this morning.
You're live.
28 minutes past the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at foxsportsfm.com and broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch TV channels. It's a pleasure to welcome back David Sampson, former president of the Miami Marlins. He covers baseball for CBS Sports and CBS Sports HQ. He has a daily podcast called Nothing Personal, and you can follow David on Twitter at David P. Sampson. David, top of the morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing? Hope you're safe and well.
We are, and hope the same for you. Before we get to a lot of baseball, because there is plenty to discuss as to what's going on, and you have given us great insight for a while on that, I've got to backtrack. I happened to see a tweet that happened when you were doing the first hour of the Levitard show a few weeks ago, their local hour, in which you told an incredible story about the bus that I believed was owned by John Henry, if I have that right, and in the sale of the Marlins to your group, there were some dynamic factors at stake with that bus. So I will leave it right there to you, and you've got to tell this bus story, David.
Well, I'm happy to. It really was something. Excuse me. Anytime you have a negotiation like what's going on right now with the union and the league, or any negotiation, you have to find a source of leverage that you know that you have, and then you have to expose it and get your fingers in and make it bigger and bigger. So back in 2002, we knew that John Henry wanted to sell the Marlins so badly. He could not stay in Florida. He hated Florida. He couldn't get a ballpark built, and his mind was already elsewhere. And unfortunately, I knew that. So given that, I realized that we had the upper hand in the negotiation, and I knew that he had this asset. He had built this custom tour bus, like a rock and roll bus that you'd think the Rolling Stones would use to go from city to city. And I wanted that bus. And I can't explain why. There's no rational reason for it other than the fact it was a multi-million-dollar asset. I just figured it would be fun to have. We could use it for promotional purposes and to drive around, put players on it, go to events. And throughout the negotiation, I had asked for the bus as part of the deal, and John Henry and his negotiators had said, no chance, no way. John Henry loves that bus like he loves his daughter. There is no chance he'll get it. Just forget about it. So during the course of the months of negotiating, I would bring it up, and it would go on the issue list. They would say no, and I would return it to the negotiating list. They'd say no. I'd return it to the list. We talk about it, no. So we get right down to the end, and the swap is going to happen where we're going to sell the Expos to baseball, buy the Marlins from John Henry, and we know that he's going to get the Red Sox, which is what he wanted after he couldn't get the Los Angeles Angels, actually. So right as the deal was beginning to get to the close, I went back and I said, just one more issue. There's literally one more issue. We want the bus. And we were told it's a non-starter. And I said, this is the perfect time to get the bus. And so I said, okay, here's how this is going to work. If there's no bus, there's no deal. It's that simple. and they thought that I was crazy because we had been working with baseball. There was a lot of skin in the game on all sides. Jeffrey had told me that he wanted to get out of Montreal and he wanted to stay in baseball, wanted to get the Marlins. So I knew that there was a lot at stake. But I also knew that there was no way at the end of the day John Henry would give up the Red Sox and give up getting out of Florida in the way that he was getting out, which was whole, because he wanted $158 million, which is what he had put in. So I stood my ground. I said, no bus, no deal. But 20 minutes later, I get a phone call from John Henry, who's at a black tie event. And I've never been yelled at by anyone, including my great Jewish mother. Never been yelled at the way John Henry yelled at me. He scolded me, and I was 34 years old at the time, and he thought that by scolding me that I would, shrivel up, and that would be the end of it. So he steps out of this black tie event. He calls me on the phone, yells at me, and says, you're not getting the bus. And he swore, you're not getting the effing bus. And I said, that's fine. I appreciate it. I'm sorry you had to step out of your event. But just so you know, I'm calling the commissioner because we have now walked away from the deal. Good luck with the Marlins. About 20 minutes later, I get a call from the president of baseball who said, are you really going to stop an entire deal because of a goddamn bus? And I said, listen, just so you know, it's not that I'm going to stop the deal. I did stop the deal. It's off. We're back in Montreal. John's back in Florida. John Harrington has no one to sell the Red Sox to at that price. And have a great day. 20 minutes later, the commissioner calls in and gave us the bus and said, I've convinced John Henry that you get the bus. And since that day, John Henry would barely speak to me. When he got married to his second wife, it eased up a little bit because I got along well with Linda. But it definitely impacted our relationship. Not that I cared. But by the way, the bus was with the Marlins. And the postscript to the bus story is when Jeffrey sold the team to Derek, it was something called an asset transaction, an asset swap, where all of the assets of the Marlins got sold to Derek Jeter, but we left off the list from the beginning the bus. So the bus stayed with Jeffrey, and Jeff Conine and I called Jeffrey the day of the transaction and said, we want to buy the bus. And Jeffrey said, I don't want the damn bus. I don't want any part of any of it. So Jeff Conine and I, for a very nominal fee, bought the bus, still hold the bus, and the name of the company we used to buy the bus was a company we started, and it's called WGTFB LLC, which is We Got the Effin' Bus LLC. And that is a true story, every word of it.
You still have the bus?
To this day. Of course.
What's the rental price? Because I have Bucks season tickets, and I want to take this bus to a Bucks game this year.
Station events. I mean, you've got an opportunity to make some money with the bus here. What's your rate?
Well, I should just mention that's exactly what we do.
I know you do.
We rent out the bus on weekends. We take it when we want to go out, but it goes for a couple $1,000 over the course of a night. You get the bus, people take it. You put 20 people in. It's a perfect bus to take places. It's got couches. It's got a bathroom. It's got a shower. It's got TVs all over and music. It's a tour bus.
It's fantastic.
And it's just great. But there's one thing we kept in the bus. The original captain's chair that John Henry would sit in when he would be driven back and forth as sort of an homage to John.
Right, an ode to John Henry.
That is so fantastic. I like I said, I heard it, and I had to have it repeated for our audience because it is too darn good. Thank you for that. David, all right, on to baseball. They offered 82. Players came back with 114. And then the owner said, okay, we'll play 50. This does not seem to be going well, David.
I had the opposite reaction. This is exactly how to negotiate, right? So just think about any negotiation. You send a number that you know is not feasible and not going to happen. You get a number back that is not feasible and not going to happen, and you end up somewhere in the middle, which is exactly, by the way, where MLB wanted to be in the first place. So I think it's going right. The real problem is that there's such a difference of opinion over the pay and how the pay will work. Players want pro rata, and pro rata means you get paid according to the number of games in the season. So now instead of negotiating pay cuts and pay tiers, what they're negotiating is number of games. So MLB can say, okay, you've got your pro rata, you win, way to go, but we get to decide the number of games because we're the commissioner's office, and that's our right. And so they're saying if you want pro rata, then we'll play 50 games, and that pro rata equals the pay cut that they wanted from the beginning.
Talking with David Samson, CBS Sports HQ, his daily podcast, Nothing Personal. Follow David on Twitter at David, the letter P, Samson. David, is this a case where the owners are losing money with every game played because the players have operated under the, hey, we all are going to make more money the more games we play. The money's in the television. So the more games we can have televised, the more money we're all going to make. It sounds as if, the players are like, hey, we want to play as many as possible. And the owners are like, well, if we're going to play under this economic, model, quite frankly, we lose money every game. So we're going to play as few as possible. Is that true?
So in this situation, let's just take a regular season with full fans and the full ability. And let's just take the Tampa Bay Rays or the Miami Marlins. In a full season, they lose money on an operational basis. It's not even a question, even with revenue sharing, because there are not a lot of fans who are going to the games. So the average ticket price is not as high as other places, and the volume is just not as high. And so, like you learn in Economics 101, when you tell someone, I lose $1 every time I make a widget, but we're going to make it up on volume. That's the joke, which is, if you lose $1 when you make one widget, when you make 20, that doesn't mean you start making money. It means you actually lose $20. So there are teams who lose money every year. So the more games you play, the more expenses you have. And expenses, for the most part, are payroll, the biggest expense, of course. So they will end up losing more money. For teams which make money, and there are teams operationally who do make money, the more games you play, you do make more money in a normal season. However, this is not a normal season. Without fans, those teams which had made money with fans over the years will not make money because they're losing between 30 and 40% of their revenue right off the top. Because without fans, you don't get food or beverages or merchandise or parking or any of the other money that those big market, big attendance teams get. So it is correct that the more games played without fans, the more money teams will lose.
David, how many teams do you think, how many owners do you think would rather just not open the doors at all this year?
Well, that's the most important question out there right now. And as I've tried to explain on Nothing Personal, the answer is that if 8 owners believe in anything together, they can block the entire industry from doing anything. What I mean by that is, to pass a collective bargaining agreement, you need 23 out of 30 owners to agree to it. In the old days, Bud Selig, the commissioner, wanted 30 owners to agree. He wanted unanimity. But you didn't need it. You only need 23. Rob Manfred, the new commissioner, recognizes that you do only need 23. So if there's 7 owners unhappy with an economic deal, with a collective bargaining agreement, or with any sort of rule change or any sort of policy change, if 7 owners are against it, it doesn't matter. It passes 23-7, and the rule goes into effect, or the bargaining agreement gets ratified. But if you get an 8th team, all of a sudden nothing else matters, because there's no agreement that's passed, no rule change that's passed, etc. I don't believe there are 8 teams currently who will vote against a collective bargaining agreement that's agreed to between the commissioner and the union that then goes to a vote. But I'm worried that it could get there. So Rob is spending a lot of time speaking to the hawks, that we'll call them, the teams who could sabotage the season, and trying to figure out how to make them turn into yes votes. But it may not be easy.
David, do you look at baseball's future in the next 18 months as bleakly as Miller and Moulton do? Because we have thought from the very beginning that this was the beginning of the 2021/22 CBA negotiations, and it seems as if they're almost willing to go to war now. Imagine what they're going to be like 18 months from now.
Well, the good news is that you won't have 2 wars the way you're describing them. Because if there is no baseball this season, even if it's for health purposes and no sports can start, if there is no season, they will just go right into a longer-term negotiation to get to extend or change the collective bargaining agreement, which expires after 2021. If they come to an agreement to play in 20, then they'll have to start a new negotiation, but they'll have more time to do it. The reason why everything is so public and everyone is so fractured and nervous and crazy is that the time frame for a negotiation right now is so condensed. In the real world of management union negotiating of collective bargaining agreements, you get much longer to get through issues, to get to an agreement before the deadline of the expiration. In this case, you didn't have a lot of time, and also there's no agreed upon deadline. In normal negotiations, your agreement ends on October 31st, 2021. You know you need an agreement before February of 22 when spring training starts. That's a deadline. Now, today, people aren't sure. Do we have to have an agreement by June 4th, by June 8th? Does spring training have to start June 15th for the season to start July 4th? Could we start the season August 1st instead? So there's no agreed upon deadline by both sides. And that's a point that's necessary to actually come to an agreement, in my opinion.
And David, with that being said, how much of this negotiation do you think will affect? I mean, how much of the bad blood that's going on right now do you think will still be in place for 2022? Or do you think they're grown up enough to get whatever deal done they get done for 2020, and then when they have to renegotiate the CBA, that they will have let 2020 go by their memory? Or do you think a lot what's going on will still be right at the front of their minds when they're negotiating 2 years from now?
So that's like saying in your marriage, what does one fight have to do with the next fight? Do you forget about a fight in between and go on nice walks on the beach and then move on to your next fight?
Depends on the person, doesn't it?
Well, if you don't want to get divorced, you try to forget about fights. In marriage, right, divorce is always a specter that is possible. In baseball situation, there'll always be a union and always be management. There is no divorce, so you have to have a shorter memory. So I do not believe that this pandemically motivated negotiation will deleteriously impact the 2021 negotiation. That doesn't mean it's not going to be a tough one, and it doesn't mean that it won't come with more public back and forth and strategic leaks and all the stuff that's happening now. But I do not think that it, at the end of the day, will lead to a strike or lockout after 2021.
David, as always, appreciate your time. Love your insight. All the best to you and your family.
You too. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thanks,
David Sampson from the CBS Sports family. CBS Sports HQ. His daily podcast is called Nothing Personal. You can follow David on Twitter at David, the letter P, Sampson. David Sampson, former president of the Marlins, and along with Jeff Conine, proud owner of the bus.
David, I know that story took away a lot of baseball questions you might have wanted to ask.
That's fine.
I just wanted to make sure it was worth it.
And I love the name of the LLC.
That is outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
Couple of grand, apparently. We can have the bus.
And, guys like us, blankety blanks, like you and I, David.
Right.
I don't know about you, but that's onions at 34 years old.
Right.
To do what he did.
Yep.
That is serious onions.
Yep. That was a hell of an hour. You get yelled at by John Henry, then get called by the president of baseball, then get called by Bud Selig. It's a hell of an hour right there.
Really is.
You're going to walk away from this deal? No, actually, we've already walked away from it. All because of the bus. Miller and Moulton. Today was the day when. Coming up, Pat Kerwin will join us in about 40 minutes' time. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Drive home with the Doug Gottlieb Show.
I don't know about you. That's an all-timer to me.
That's a great story.
We already have guys that can play.
Can't you see John Henry walk out of a black tie? I mean, it's like right out of Billions, walking out of the thing at the art gallery and just screaming. By the way, Billions is getting sexy. Everybody's screwing everybody.
Oh, wow.
Well, they've got both Chuck and Wendy in relationships already.
In Naples on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Cortec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Cortec in stock, ready to go, pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Cortec that you have. You also have other Cortec products as well.
We also carry the Cortec stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortec, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortec wood, look of wood, real wood, but with a more...
Notre Dame Navy is going to be in Annapolis.
If you haven't
been to the
Four Meisters, you really owe it to yourself to visit the store.
How you doing over there, big fella?
Naples Boulevard, right next to Costco.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
Floormeisters.com. That's floormeisters.com.
This is our commitment to you. We're going to bring the fun.
Yes, you are exactly right, Miller. That's the exact number that they paid for it. $10,000 for a $600,000 bus. That's what Conine and Sampson paid Loria. And Jeter had no idea it was even pulled out of the thing. That's the best part.
Getting too close to each other. Social distancing is about to get a big boost from technology. Miami, one of the first 7 airports in the country to roll out motion analytics technology.
Wonder if the primary owner of the Marlins, Bruce Sherman, is listening because he lives in Naples. Wonder when he found out that story. He went, damn.
Every person in there is a moving dot. You can get a really good kind of image from above of where everyone is, how they're clustered, how they're moving, how far apart they are from each other, and so on.
Some travelers say the new regulations give them more peace of mind when they travel.
So it's WGTFB, right?
We got the effing bus. I don't think Jeter knew.
Right.
That's the thing, fan. It's not that he cared. I don't think he ever knew that the bus was part of. Why would you? I mean, of all the things when you're buying if you're buying a minor league hockey team, you'd think there's a bus.
I mean, it sounds like they, I don't know if it's unethical or what have you, but I thought David Sampson basically said we didn't list it as an asset.
Nope.
The potential spread of the virus.
It takes the powertrain control systems and the climate control systems in the vehicle, and then it transfers that heat into the vehicle with the climate.
Because this way he bought the bus from Loria.
Right.
33 degrees for over 15 minutes, which is hotter than the hottest day in Death Valley. And what we found in conjunction with Ohio State University in a study was that type of heat for that period of time kills over 99%.
You know, that Notre Dame Navy game was supposed to be ours.
Will it still be?
No, Resco negotiated it away from CBS and gave it to the other guys.
Oh, okay.
When he did that long-term AAC deal.
Gotcha.
Because it's a Navy home game.
Right.
Well, that's we were supposed to get that.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
10 minutes before 8 o'clock. Thanks for being with us, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Brett McMurphy with some breaking news in the last half hour. You know, if we have a college football season that starts on time, game day was going to go to Ireland.
If
we have a college football season that starts on time, the proverbial week 0, game day was going to be in Ireland for Notre Dame Navy. Well, now they're going to be in Annapolis because the game will not be held in Ireland and in all likelihood will be held Labor Day weekend. So a week later, it'll be held on campus at Navy. It would be the first time in the history of this series that Notre Dame Navy would take place on campus in Annapolis.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Talk about a tough ticket.
Yes.
I mean, even if they're running at full capacity, talk about a tough ticket. Not to mention if we're only going to be doing 25%, which don't get me started.
So that's Brett McMurphy of Stadium. Time now for
Miller and Moulton's Today Was the Day When, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless, but a lot of fun to talk about.
This is Today Was the Day When, Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Starting 1835 today, P.T. Barnum and his circus begin their first tour of the United States. 1933, FDR authorizes the first swimming pool built inside the White House. I like that. I mean, I don't know where they'd put it there, but I like the idea of the White House pool. Guessing it's been filled in, hasn't it?
Why?
Is there still a pool in the White House?
I would think so. Why wouldn't there be?
I don't know. I've never toured the White House. I thought you may.
I'm guessing it's a big stress reliever. That job has a little stress to it.
1935, Babe Ruth announces his retirement as a player at the age of 40. It was today in 1942 that Teddy Ballgame enlists as a U.S. Navy aviator.
Take a look at his career numbers and realize that he missed almost 4 full years in his young prime. Never mind the fact he misses almost 2 others for Korea. But you could argue he's the second best player in the history of baseball behind Ruth. You really could.
1958, Whitey Ford would strike out 6 in a row to tie an AL record. That is now what we call Tuesday in Major League Baseball. 1962, Ray Charles' cover of I Can't Stop Loving You from his crossover album, The Modern Sounds of Country and Western Music, hits #1 on Billboard. 1977, Jersey allows gambling casinos in Atlantic City. And
I remember it well.
Do you remember this one, David? Because it was today in 1981. I believe, I don't think it was 2020, but it was the Barbara Walters interview in which she famously asked Katharine Hepburn, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
Really? She asked it of Hepburn?
Yes.
It's funny. I thought she asked it of Castro.
She may have asked it more than once.
Yeah.
Might have been a go-to for her. 87, the Mariners draft this guy by the name of Ken Griffey Jr., first overall.
That worked out okay.
1989 was the debut of Dead Poets Society. Yes, we are all really old. And it was in 2002 that The Wire debuted on HBO.
You know, that's a show that people have been binge watching, and others who didn't watch it because it starts slow. And you just need to stay with it to a certain point. You got to get about halfway through season 1. If you do, you'll be hooked. But there have been a few people who have started and like 2-3 episodes in, they're like, I'm not watching this. It's like, give it just
I did that with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, I couldn't get through the first episode. I mean, I kept watching it late at night, and I'd kind of doze off and then jumped in, and away we go. If you were born today, you share your birthday with Martha Washington. Born today in 1731.
I played George Washington in the school play. Patty Sisolak was Martha Washington. Had a big crush on Patty.
Did you?
Yep.
She's not on the list, though, is she?
Not on the list, no.
No, good to know. Good to know. Behind every good man, there's a good woman, and that woman is Martha Washington. Come home every day, and she'd have a fat bowl packed for George. One of the best lines of Dazed and Confused. 1922, Charlie Sifford was born. He is the first African-American to join the PGA Tour, had 2 titles. 1941, Charlie Watts, the drummer from the Rolling Stones, was born. That's right, he's 79 years old today. Garo Yepremian is 76 today.
Wow.
All right, put these 3 in order, David. Craig Stadler, Dana Carvey, Gary Bettman.
In terms of oldest to youngest?
Yes.
Bettman, Stadler, Carvey.
Very good. Gary Bettman turning 58 or 68 today. Stadler 67 and Carvey 65. Wrestler Lex Luger is 62.
You got to admit, Bettman looks good for 60.
He does. Stadler, not so much.
No, Stadler didn't look good for 38. How's he going to look good at 68?
And Carvey also looks good for his age. Saw an interview recently. He looks 10 years younger than he is still. Abby Wambach is 40 today. And
happy birthday, Abby.
And Freddie Adu, who is going to save American soccer, is 31 years old. He didn't.
No.
Not even close.
No. Had virtually nothing to do with American soccer, as it turned out.
That is, today was the day when, on this June 2nd, here in 2020, or March 94th, I believe, or 5th, something like that.
So if you're in and around Naples and you see Abby, just wish her a happy birthday.
There you have it.
She'll probably look around stunned if a couple people are yelling happy birthday, but probably get a thrill as well.
Pat Kerwin coming up in our final hour. Miller and Moulton, thank you so much for listening. Fox Sports Radio streaming at foxsportsfm.com. Thank you, Triton. Trenton, whatever. Press room is the old pool. Ford installed an outdoor pool. Couldn't get over to that while doing Today Was the Day When, but I do appreciate the info.
Scrapyards crush them up and ship them off.
There's a show that cares about useless information more than Miller and Moulton. Name it.
Exactly.
Kobe Cooling has a full-time staff that performs all of our recycling. We remove and recycle the Freon, remove the oils, have them treated at hazardous waste facilities. We completely disassemble the machine and recycle and sort all materials so we have a minimal impact on our environment. We could just throw them out like most companies do, but Kobe Cooling supports a smart, green recycling environment. If you care about Southwest Florida and its natural environment, always use a company that recycles as much as possible. We do it because we can, not because we have to. Kobe Cooling, license CACO 57313.
We work for you.
You know how it works,
right?
We do this for you.
It's not often that you get to work with somebody who you respect.
We give you the information you need.
Every single day there's a news story. We got a story.
We've been working on that all morning long.
We do this all for you.
Which is how the business works.
We are Fox Sports Radio, and we're working hard for you.
For professional roofing.
So how much do you think that Hertz deal is a year over at the arena?
What's that?
How much do you think the Hertz deal is annually?
No idea.
Because, of course, the first thing I thought of during our 2 weeks away that Hertz formally filed for bankruptcy. Now I know they're doing that to, not go out of business. But first thing I thought of was the arena and like,
The sports station with balls. And strikes. We also have strikes. WFSX AM from Naples to Cape Coral and all of Southwest Florida. We are Fox. Here's what's trending now. Brought to you by the
I think $500,000 a year, though, don't you think?
No.
Really?
No way.
Wow.
It was $350 with Tico, and there's no way they're paying that, or with Jermaine. There's no way they're paying that much. No way. I'd say it's 150 tops.
Damn. That's a steal.
No, it's not. I mean, it's great money for the arena, but I can't imagine getting any more for that. What value do you get?
Well, first off, just the advertising alone from the highway. I mean, You figure it out. Cars and
maybe 250.
Plus all the times it's mentioned on media outlets throughout the area. So I step on a scale today. I'm guessing I'm in the 250s.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller.
Really upset that my daughter will not read one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish on Twitch because I needed content. That's what we've come to.
And Moulton.
Well, we need to explain to her the pilot program, and we need 25 hours of programming a week. So you need to deliver your 12 minutes a day, 5 times a week, because that's an hour, honey.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Hey, David.
Guests appear on the Goldberg Noon Abraham Hotline.
Just saw this on Twitter. You know what the numbers are right now? 100 to the start of the NFL season. We're 100 days away.
Wow.
So might want to start with that.
Town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Couple minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock on this Tuesday morning, the 2nd of June. Thanks so much for being with us. We are Miller and Moulton, and this is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this and every show on the station at foxsportsfm.com, and Miller and Moulton broadcast live also on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch TV channels. Sign up. They are free, and the Twitch channel, you get to be interactive with us during the show and during the break. Today's a momentous day, Mark. We used to do this on a regular basis.
Yes, we did. And this would be, and shame on us, but there's a lot going on, but this would have been the start of our show, and we would have celebrated this because you were big throughout Act 1 and Act 2 of giving the countdown to football season.
Correct.
And one year I finally snapped at you. I said, I cannot deal with this when we're at 162 and 154 or whatever the hell it would be, because there'd usually be a gap between the Thursday and but whatever, it's week 0 and when the NFL started.
Right. And so you said basically you got to get to 100 and below.
Correct.
100 and below. Then we had to argue, did it have to be 100 and below for both? Because obviously the college season would start before the pro, and Mark was like, no, you get to the century figure, that is good enough. Well, with that in mind, the magic numbers are 88 and 100.
September 10th is 100 days from now. That is when the Texans and Chiefs are supposed to kick off at Arrowhead Stadium.
100 days away, as of now, is the start of the National Football League season, and it's 88 days away, because almost 2 full weeks earlier, you'll have week 0 on the final Saturday of August. So 88 and 100 for those of you. And what is remarkable is here we are with so few sports that have been played over the course of the last 10, 11 weeks. I mean, how much sports, how much NBA and NHL are going to get underway before the football seasons kick off here?
And a couple of big dates coming up. June 26th is a big date because that's the agreement between the Players Association and the league of when off-season workouts have to be done by. June 26th until camp is when we go dark. And are they going to push that back?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I think the players have no interest.
None.
Players are like, I'll see you at camp. So, no, I don't think so. If you're the NFL, I mean, you've had a damn near flawless offseason here, considering everything that's gone on.
Compared to the other sports?
Yeah.
My goodness. Your draft was the most watched ever. I mean, this thing for the NFL has been, I don't want to, not a dream come true, that's a terrible analogy, but the NFL has enjoyed a very prosperous offseason with no one else playing sports.
Correct. I mean, it's been a terrific offseason if you just judge them by themselves in the coronavirus vacuum. Never mind, you could Compare them to all the other sports. And once again, the NFL flat out luckier. Look at when it is they play versus all the other sports and who were playing and or were about to play. And it just so happened to hit shortly after the NFL was done playing. 479-5551. That's our magic number, the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, 479-5551. The big stories in sports today. Late yesterday, the baseball owners waited about 24 hours in getting back to the players, in which the players had said, listen, it's 82-game season. It's not enough games. Thought we had agreed we were going to try to play as many games as we can. So the players came up with a proposal, June 30th to October 30th, and let's play 114 games. And the owner said, oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, how about 50? So you can imagine the players who were like, wait a minute, I thought your proposal was 82. And the owners are like, well, you said you're not going to give any money back. So in that case, we're only going to shell out so much money. And that's 50 games worth. So there you go.
And David Sampson, who was on our show about 40 minutes ago, said no. And I kind of threw it at him an Armageddon-style thing. He says, no. Negotiations 101. They put out a realistic number. The players put out an unrealistic number, so the owners countered with an even more unrealistic number.
It's funny. I didn't see the players' numbers unrealistic. I just think it's a straight cash issue. The owners only want to pay out so much money this year to play games, period, based on their revenue figures. And so with the players insisting on getting prorated salaries, which was negotiated twice, then the owners are like, well, okay, fine. If this is a deal breaker for you, we will give you your prorated salaries. We will only give you 50 games worth. This is all the money we're going to shell out this year.
Couple of very interesting points made by David Sampson this morning. One, it only takes 8 teams to block any sort of CBA negotiations. They need 23 teams to approve any deal. And the question I asked was, how many owners out there would rather not play a season? And that's what he said is if there are 8, they can cancel anything.
Well, and you have to figure financially that 2 of them are in the state of Florida. I mean, David Sampson said matter-of-factly, the Marlins and Rays do not make money opening their doors, even with revenue sharing. Now, I find that interesting that the Rays wouldn't make money with revenue sharing, but even though they both have, certainly in the Rays case, a new local TV deal, it's not like it's a big money deal. But Sampson made the case that these franchises lose money. So those 2 owners would be amongst the 7/8 who would be like, there's really no business us playing this year, especially if we can't put people in the seats. Now, I do think a discussion that, obviously we haven't had a show for the last couple of weeks, but I do think a discussion that now has to enter into the fray is, are we sure we're going to do this without fans? I mean, the governor of Texas, I believe, just said you could have 25% capacity, and that's now. That's now. You want to host something now, you can have 25% of capacity.
And I think those numbers are going to still go up. Stephen Ross anticipates playing football with fans. And what I think will be fascinating, David, is let's just say Michigan, because she's been pretty adamant about no public gatherings. Washington, Oregon, been pretty adamant about no public gatherings. Well, we play sports and you can't gather there. So does that mean that, Dolphins at Lions, fanless. Lions at Dolphins, 60,000 fans?
Could be.
What an advantage. Not even in terms of the sport, in the game. What an advantage financially for those teams that are going to open up.
No question. No doubt about it.
Because with all, David and I have been with the football, we've been on, the SEC, they're playing with, I'm sorry, they're playing with fans.
Well, I don't think it's an issue, are they playing with fans? I think the question is what percentage of fans? I mean, come on, we all know they're playing with fans.
And I think I'll be surprised. unless the coronavirus numbers just spike in ways that I don't think they're going to, I will be surprised, nearly shocked, if the SEC, if Florida teams, if Georgia teams, if South Carolina aren't playing, Clemson aren't playing in front of full capacity.
I would be surprised at full capacity, but I would not be surprised at half capacity. 479-5551, 479-5551, Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing, text and talk line. Pat Dye passed away yesterday at the age of 80. Head coach and AD at Auburn for a dozen years. Went 6-6 against Alabama. That'll make you a legend in those parts. He started his tenure at the end of Coach Bryant's tenure, but Pat Dye fondly remembered that's Jordan-Hare Stadium, but you play on Pat Dye Field if you ever go to the plains of Auburn, and it is a great college football stadium. But Pat Dye remembered fondly for many reasons in the plains, but the biggest of which is he got the Iron Bowl out of Birmingham. I mean, there's a whole generation, if not two, of college football fans not even aware that that game used to be played at Legion Field in Birmingham, period, and that was where Alabama played a good chunk of their games. That game was never played in Auburn.
Right. Didn't Alabama play more than one game in Birmingham at that time?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I always remember Alabama playing 2 or 3 games in Birmingham.
Very much so. And Birmingham's only about 50 miles from Tuscaloosa, so it's not very far. And, it wasn't quite a split season, but they would definitely play a couple games a year still.
Arkansas used to do it for a long time. They'd play a few games in Little Rock, and it was always something that they would do for many, many years. On that note, David, since you have, I believe, now been to every SEC stadium, I don't know if you've been to Missouri or not.
I have.
One? Okay, probably, everybody gets there sometime. What's the most underrated fan experience? I know Ole Miss is its own special thing. I think everybody's aware of that. Maybe you would vote Ole Miss. But in the SEC or even in college football, what's the most underrated fan experience? Because we all know LSU is, arguably the best. What's the most underrated?
Neyland Stadium. Tennessee hasn't been good for so long that there's a damn near a generation of people now that haven't been to a Tennessee game when the Vols have got it going on. Neyland Stadium is gorgeous. It's big. It's tall. And it sits right on the banks of the Tennessee River. And it is part of the reason why the third Saturday in October, not only would they play Alabama, but the fall foliage in and around Knoxville and the river and what have you. I mean, falls in Knoxville, I don't know about the other 10 months out of the year, but falls in Knoxville are gorgeous. And it's 100,000+ people at this stadium that is built largely straight up. They expanded it up, not out. They expanded it up. And when the team comes, over the hill, march into the game 2 hours beforehand, down, I believe it's now Manning Way. I think it's the most underrated experience because people don't think Tennessee football's special anymore. But I was lucky. First few years still, I was brought into the SEC on CBS deal. Tennessee was still a big deal. Fulmer was still there. They actually, our second year, they went to Atlanta. So I would say Tennessee. And if Pruitt, he's making the inroads recruiting-wise, Mark, it'll be very interesting, the education that it could be. If Tennessee can come back, even be a 10-win program, heck with contending for championships, Tennessee can put 10-2 seasons on the board. I think it'd be an education for a damn near a full generation of college football fans to realize, hey, this Tennessee football is kind of special. Yeah, it really is.
Because I would like to go to Auburn. I thought you might say Auburn there, and I I've wanted to go to Neyland for a while. It's just one of those game day experiences that I think everybody should be a part of, in the river and the whole volunteer Navy and all that stuff. I will say, having been to a few games in Columbia, for as bad as the Gamecocks are pretty much every year, there is not a more rabid fan base for a bad team than South Carolina.
No, and right before kickoff when they do Sandstorm there, it is cool.
It really is. I've been to a couple night games against Georgia there, and I'll never forget Holtz's first game there. They were coming off a winless season, and you would have thought they were the undefeated national champs, the way they were puffing their chest out before they would eventually lose to Georgia. But there's something about, and I know the chicken coops aren't up. It was just something about how bad, but yet, that's kind of the old line that, no, don't you dare call this a dump. This is our dump. And how dare you? How dare you call this dump a dump? You can't. And that's what I always had that feeling about Columbia. And I've not been there in 10 years. So I know they've kind of cleaned up the area in and around the stadium. But
for those that not know, if you haven't been in Columbia, South Carolina, as of 10 years ago, when Steve Spurrier was taking South Carolina to the SEC championship game, there were chicken coops across the road from where it was they were playing. That's why a lot of people consider him taking South Carolina to Atlanta damn near as impressive as anything he ever did in Gainesville.
And for the longest time, there was essentially a 2-lane road that you could get in and out of the stadium back to anywhere. And a true story, many years ago, my ex-in-laws who have stories on, they did unhook a train. They got past that, the train came through and unhooked it. So the train was stuck on that for hours.
Well, traffic and all. Got to beat it any way you can. So Clemson wide receiver Justin Ross, an expected first-round pick. His career may be done. He has a congenital spine issue. He's going to have surgery on Friday in Pittsburgh. And so we'll see. Justin Ross will not play this year for Clemson. We'll see if he ever plays again. And it looks as if Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are, they're going to battle here. And July 15th is the date for the two sides to come to an agreement, or else they cannot come to an agreement this year. And remember, if Dak plays this year under the exclusive franchise tag, the Cowboys can only tag him for one more year. Does Dak Prescott have the onions to basically do what Kirk Cousins did? Remember, Cousins played it out with the Skins. They couldn't tag him anymore. They had to either sign him or lose him, and they lost him. Now, they wanted Cousins to leave. They were comfortable with it. But are Dak Prescott and the Cowboys slowly heading down the Cousins-Redskins road where essentially Dak Prescott could become an unrestricted free agent for the 2022 season at the age of 28?
Boy, and the timing of that is so important, David, because that's kind of the same point that we think Aaron Rodgers' time in Green Bay could possibly be done. Never know what's going on with Stafford, not to mention the fact that that's 2 more drafts that the Cowboys could take someone as Dak Prescott's replacement. So it is one of the more interesting football things going on that we'll get to with Pat Kerwin coming up, because as you've mentioned for months, if not years, David, Jerry caves to everybody. And you don't even have to go back. You brought up Emmitt Smith, and I kind of stopped you. I said, why do we need to go back a generation? Just go back to the last 2 years. Give Cooper his money. Gave Zach his money. Gave 3 more players money. So
gave 2 offensive linemen. Gave Lawrence the defensive lineman. Gave Smith the linebacker. Cooper the wide receiver. Zeke the tailback. Jerry has paid. He has no problems paying. So it is interesting because they've been negotiating for a year. And they're held up on term. See, you could see where if it was money, you're like, they'll come to an agreement. But they're held up more on term. Dak wants to be a free agent sooner rather than later. He's insisting on only a 4-year deal. And the Cowboys are going, Dak, look around. All these quarterbacks signed 5-year deals. Russell, Aaron, they all signed 5-year deals. That's why, to me, Mark, it'll be interesting. If you're the Cowboys, do you sit and wait and see what the Chiefs and Mahomes sign? Just for length, because Mahomes is clearly considered, the quarterback. And if that's a 5-year deal, you're the Cowboys, you can look at Dak and go, dude, if he signed for 5, you sure as you know what are going to sign for 5.
Absolutely. But Cousins right now is the one that Dak is using. It was a 3-year deal in Minnesota, fully guaranteed. What did he get on the back end of it? More money. So that's where he's going.
So July 15th, just keep that date in mind. That's the drop dead date for the Cowboys and Dak Prescott to come to a deal this year.
Our poll question today, if the MLB does not play in 2020, will you come back as a fan in 2021? One of the choices is I left a long time ago. So for the almost 30% of you that say you're not baseball fans, that's fine. of the baseball fans, 44% say they're coming back, David. You said you would not.
No, I think I'd be done. That line at the end of North Dallas 40, it's time to put away childish things. I think that's where I'd be, honestly. I mean, if you guys this year, with everything that's going on, I mean, we all know what's going on. It doesn't have to be laid out in sports and in life. With everything that is going on, you guys really can't reach a deal to play some kind of season this year. Never mind the fact it really would benefit you as a sport. I mean, this is actually a golden opportunity for you guys. What are considered your weaknesses could actually become your strengths during the summer of 2020. The fact that you play every day, which is largely seen as a negative, could actually be a positive for the guts of your season. And if you guys don't play, it's kind of like, you know what? I think there's other things I can do with my time.
And there are going to be a lot of people like I am this summer that I had two jobs. This is one. I had another. I've not gone back to that because I've got to take care of my little girl. Daycares and summer camps. Seth Everett talked about it. Summer camps are canceled. Parents are put in a different spot. There's going to be more parents at home this summer, working from home. It is a genuine great opportunity to have generations of fans watch together. As someone pointed out yesterday, I've caught a little bit of the NASCAR bug.
Unbelievable.
Well, it is unbelievable. Started with Ross Chastain, but the most overwhelming part of it is my son's into it. And when you can sit and watch a sport with your son, whatever that sport is, those are incredible bonds. Baseball playing this summer while a lot of parents are at home watching games with their kids and developing a fan base might have been a hell of an idea. Good luck, baseball.
Yeah, and we'll say it again. There is no original television that's been produced. You know, these summer series didn't get produced because right when they were starting to be made, Hollywood and New York City and every place else got shut down. I mean, you know, if you have a favorite show, it likely ended 1 to 4 episodes earlier than it planned on ending this year. Right now, there's no original programming for the fall of 2020. I mean, if you are in sports, I mean, we've joked about it. If you're Fox, I mean, you could literally be saying, hey, baseball, you know, we need to look at our contract here. How many nights a week can we show you? Because we don't have anything else except reruns. We'll run football on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. And are you available the other 4 days? Because right now, that's all we've got. Wrestling on Friday. So Monday through Wednesday, baseball. Do you want it? Because we're available.
Oh, and by the way, if you don't come, we've got the hockey contract. And NBC does. We've got nothing.
Yeah.
We've got nothing. Someone's going to be dominating the weeknight lineup sports-wise. Somebody. It could be you, baseball.
Miller and Moulton. Back to football. Pat Kerwin to join us next. Thanks so much for listening. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Calling your quarantine. And we move now to the couch where this match is set to take place. The
Pat's
first
out of
spoonful
town.
Of ice cream shoveled in. Maybe a little
What's
too
that?
Fast. We
Pat's out of town.
Okay.
He's coming on, but he's out of
Yeah, I call him on a cell anyhow.
Okay.
I don't even have. I guess I've got his. The only other number I have is his cabin number, I think.
Was settled by her feet eventually. Look out below. She's going down.
A message of hope from Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor Meisters in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Core-Tec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Core-Tec in stock, ready to go pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Core-Tec that you have. You also have other Core-Tec products as well.
We also carry the Core-Tec stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Core-Tec, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Core-Tec wood. Look at wood, real wood, but with a more stable core for Southwest Florida's humidity.
If you haven't been to the Floor Meisters, you really owe it to yourself to visit the store. 6281 Naples Boulevard, right next to Costco, or go online, floormeisters.com. That's floormeisters.com.
Even in my 80s, every dive is exciting and enjoyable. When I developed cataracts years ago, I couldn't see well underwater. You can have the best gear and know the best dive spots. If your eyes aren't the best, it's just not the same. And Dr. Scheibo knows that.
Knowing how much Jimbo cares about diving, it was a privilege to fix his vision.
It's great to know that we got eye doctors in our area that care just as much about me as I care about being in the water.
Hi, this is Dr. Scheibel from Community Eye Center. My partner, Dr. Spatafora, and I want to remind everybody, don't be a spreader. The coronavirus is so tiny, 100 million particles fit on the head of a pin. As we run around in our trucks and cars and play golf and go fishing and go to work and do the things we like to do, we are spreading the virus. The virus can only move with us. Over 65, diabetes, COPD, all these folks will be hurt severely by
Feel a
this
lot better
virus.
today.
Wash your hands.
Good.
Be careful. Don't be a spreader.
103.3 Cape Coral. We are
Is that 90 seconds, Giro?
It's Fred Kobe with your Kobe Cooling tip of the day. There's a
Yes.
trend in the air conditioning business to buy up small companies and become a giant conglomerate like George Soros. Those ambitious corporate giants, to them I say, good luck.
Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Pat. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. It's been, I think this is the longest I have not been on the show in
There's
my life.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Oh, Lord. Well, and you weren't on either, so I told you I volunteered to
No, and
spend the morning with you.
a few other people did. I didn't, David's here. I didn't know how long we were going to be out, and there was no way I was going to do. If we'd have gone 3 weeks, I would have thought about putting guest hosts in week 3. But 2 weeks, we hadn't had a day off since before football season. So I was like, you know what? I want to come back with David. I thought it would be bigger, and we had a great show yesterday. So,
Well, good. Let's roll here. Dave, you there?
Yeah, he is.
I am.
Oh, your voice sounds just about as normal as always. Sarcastic, full of GM thoughts. It's
Exactly.
incredible.
Exactly.
I show no mercy to anybody.
We don't expect it.
I am playing a hard line with Dak Prescott. I'm back on my game, Pat.
Oh, there it is. GM, let's get into anything you want, and feel free to understand I may attack, just to prove I know you're healthy.
Well, you know how it is when you line up on the field. You expect them to go right back at you.
That's right. There's no fucking downtime. You had your downtime. Let's go.
Now back to Miller and
All right, here we go.
All right, now we're getting somewhere. No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
28 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Longtime friend of the show who commented during the break that with our little 2-week hiatus that this is the longest he has gone ever without being on Miller and Moulton. He is Pat Kerwin of NFL Radio and CBS's NFL Today show. Pat joining us once again courtesy of Pinchers. Pat, how are you?
I'm doing fine, and everyone thinks. I actually had a friend just drive by, and he goes, "Oh, there must be nothing to do for you with this pandemic." I go, "Not quite the contrary. We're into some projects on the show, and we have a lot of callers, so it's been fun. We're in the middle of doing everyone's offensive line, and what we think of them, and how much depth they have, and who are the swing players, and can a left tackle block without help? All the things." To arrive at the best offensive lines, I suppose. Jimmy always likes to have a list. I think he's been in the media too long, but we will have the top 5, and I think right now leading the pack for me are the Saints because they have addressed everything. So those are the kind of things we're doing, and then we're going to go into – I'm really looking forward to next week because we're going to start looking at critical games I know that every coaching staff is studying. So the first game we're going to do is the playoff game when the Titans beat the Ravens, because everybody's trying to figure out how to play the Ravens, and they're going to start by watching that Tennessee game and looking for clues in there. So we're going to do the same thing and then present what we think Tennessee saw. And, some of it's always turnover luck and everything else, but strategically they played well. So that's the next project. So if you have some games that you think were key games last year, I'm all ears to get them on the list and make sure we study them.
All right, before we get to that, I just want to ask a pretty general question, Pat. Today is a significant day. We're 100 days away from the scheduled start of the NFL season. 100 days from now will be Houston at Kansas City. Will that game be played 100 days from now?
I think so. I don't think anyone's going to be at it, but I don't think they're ready for figuring out the fan part. That's the hardest part. I think they'll figure it out. Now, do I think there'll be some backlash from the union? Yeah, but I think by the time we get to the date you're referencing, they will have figured out how to appease the union on safety and everything else that goes on with that. So I think we will play. I think there's a sense of urgency from the NFL that the country needs it, and that it's good and healthy for everybody to take that chance. And I say that it's out of both sides of my mouth. It's not going to be easy to figure out coaches and everyone who's going to be involved with being healthy and safe, but we're going to do it. And I'd be surprised now if we don't play the game, but I don't think anyone's going to be there.
Pat, is there a quiet issue that has yet to come to the surface? Like you said, some pushback from the union. I mean, you're pretty connected here. Are the players on board with playing? Are they on board with this?
Nope, not yet. I mean, I talked to McGlinchey yesterday, the big tackle from San Francisco. He's all excited. He can't wait to get going. And a lot of the players that have been on the show in the last 2 weeks are, well, first off, think about it. They want to come on the show. Not one of them's come on to talk about why he doesn't want to play. And these are guys that love football, listen to the show regularly, and like to engage our listeners with their love of the game, and they want to play. The offensive linemen in general, they're the guys that feel the synchronization of what they do is really predicated on a lot of practice. And they're already getting a little anxious. They're not practicing enough. So I think you're going to see the majority of players want to play, and I'm sure they want to get paid. And there'll be a discussion and argument about do they owe them the money and everything else. And then I think the media end of it, you know, the advertisers and all that stuff. I deal with some of those guys at CBS. I know them very well they sell advertising. And when you really think about it, the Achilles heel of everything NFL is the advertisers. Because if that falls apart or shrinks, then the revenue to the networks, which ultimately becomes the revenue to the clubs, will start to fall apart. And that could cause a major cap issue next year. Remember, it's a profit-sharing model, and you could land up losing. If no one's in the games, that's 30%. I'll just round these off. That's 30% of the revenue if no one was at the games all year. And then if advertising retreats for some reason, although I don't think they should, then all of a sudden you've got another bang on the cap. So things could be really hairy next year if they're not able to figure out how to spread the risk over a couple of years. But anyway, but I also think this is going to lead right into David. By the way, David, welcome back. Good to hear your voice. You sound great. You know, Dak Prescott, take the deal now, man. You never know what's going to be next year. I'm serious.
Well, now this gets complicated and all that, but I'm wondering, is there a clause for something like a pandemic, like a just the floor falls out of the cap revenue wise? Because, you know, Pat, none of the teams, I know that the owners would love to pay the players less money, but by the same token, if you do that, you run the risk of losing some of your better players. I mean, if you're counting on spending $200 million, you've set your cap up to spend $200 million. If all of a sudden they tap you on the shoulder and go, you only have $150 you can spend, you're going to lose some of your best guys. And none of these teams want to lose their guys. I mean, is there a mechanism in place so that if 30+% of the revenue goes away, that 30+% of the cap doesn't go away? We're losing you.
I got you.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the mechanism is in place, but it's not really, I don't think any of these things like the NFL and a lot of industries are ready for a pandemic, and the language I don't believe is in their contract to offset that. Now, your fear, it would be everyone's fear and every team's fear, and you might have to lose players. And I go back to the early days of the cap. The cap has gone up literally every year since the CBA started back in 91, 92, except, and the 1 year, it was like 94 or so, I got to look it up, but I was involved in it. It only went up a couple $100,000. It was devastating to everybody. And remember, when they launched the cap, and it was around 50 million or something, it was a pretty funny number when you think about it. It was, everyone had a team full of contracts that weren't written in a salary cap era, and you had to be ready to go in the cap. So there was a lot of guys being moved immediately. So, yeah, there's going to be carnage. There's no escaping that, David. How much carnage, if they're willing to spread it out over 4 years? But that decision is going to be, well, we don't think there'll ever be another pandemic, so we could spread this out over 4 or 5 years. What if there's another one next year? So I think somewhere along the line, they're going to have to bite a bigger bullet than they want to in 2021.
Pat, I'm sure obviously the league, and I know the league has final say of how or the teams have final say of how many people they're going to let in. But let's just say, for instance, Michigan, the state of Washington, the state of New York, the state of California don't want fans, or 25% of fans. And Texas and Florida say, bring it on. Will the NFL allow, one stadium to be full with the other stadium at 25% capacity?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they're up to making a statement about that. But I think they're going to have to let teams play in their own stadiums. And you do owe it to your fans. So I said this on the air a couple of weeks ago to you guys. One of the guys that I know is in the think tank for this is talking about 8 games with 20% of the fans allowed to go, and basically telling your season ticket holders that you're going to get allocated 2 games each, and figure it out from there. So now I got a call yesterday and then an email from a fan who said, I'm an Atlanta Falcons season ticket holder, and my wife and I have decided not to go to the games this year. And I'm sold 2 games already, and I want to volunteer to give you guys some tickets to give out to fans to my games. And he cited one fan in particular who's a big Falcon fan who lives in Los Angeles. And he said, you tell him if he can fly to Atlanta, he's got 2 tickets on the 40-yard line. So I think there's a lot of people that are not interested in going to the games. And their wives or themselves have decided that's not something we're going to do in 2020. So I don't know where it's going to go, but I don't think they're going to all flock to Florida and play games down there. I think they're going to try to play in their stadiums. And we don't know how this advertising thing is going to go. They're going to fill your stadium full of banners and then sell those advertisements. So I think they got ways in their mind to raise some revenue. I don't think they can raise enough to offset 30% of the cap number.
He's Pat Kerwin, CBS's NFL Today show, moving the chains weekday afternoons with his co-host Jim Miller, 3 to 7 on NFL Radio. Pat joins us once again, courtesy of Pinchers from Tampa to Key West and many points in between. Pinchers, because you can't fake fresh. All right, I mentioned him a moment ago. Dak. I am fascinated by this. He's polarizing for, some think he's a top 5 quarterback, some the edge of the top 10, some think he's mediocre and he's got terrific personnel around him. His numbers are very good. What should they pay him? I believe that Jerry, who never holds the line, if it's truly about term, 5 years versus 4, he should hold the line. Your thoughts, if it's about term and not about cash, is this something you'd be willing to risk 2 years down the road losing your franchise quarterback over?
Well, they're going to pay him. And Jerry's smart enough, old enough, and a businessman. He is not going to see a rebuild of his team. He's got a team that he believes could win a Super Bowl. He always thinks that. But this one's a legitimate wish. He'll pay him. And, so the rumors that it's an argument about length of contract, come on. That's an easy one to solve. It's not time to solve it. It's going to be a July 13th or 14th deal. And it's going to be, Chris Mortensen and I talked about it the other day. 5 years, $35 million a year. And they'll bicker back and forth, but I won't mention who told me this, but he's a real true Dallas insider. He thinks that Dak is somewhere around $10 million a year just because he's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys in off-field stuff. So is he going to give that up to make $36 million a year as the quarterback of, the Miami Dolphins or the New York Jets or some other team? No. there's a tremendous value, and the value of being a quarterback of the Cowboys belongs to Jerry. It doesn't belong to Dak. It belongs to Jerry, because Jerry decides who that quarterback is. And then the player is the recipient of all the rewards of that. But Jerry knows what he has, and he knows that the job is worth something beyond the contract. And he's not insulting this player by any means. But he's not going to bring him to 40 million or 37. He's nuts if he does that. He doesn't have to. That's what I think is going to get done in July 13th.
Pat, I've mentioned this to you quite a few times. We've got a lot of new coaches. We always do. We're doing Zoom meetings. You know, they're trying to say the right things publicly, but you talk to a lot of these guys privately. And I know you've mentioned different times it's all about how you approach the questions, and it's got to be not yes or no. It's got to be actual things. But are you getting any feedback off the record from coaches going, this is a disaster? Because you know they're all saying the right thing publicly. What are they saying privately?
Well, you know, they're not happy, and they're, you know, trying to do the best they can because they're competitive, and they don't want to do a bad job because that can only make it worse. But I think, you know, here's how NFL coaches teach. I tell you, we're going to do this today. Mark, we're going to work on your three-point stance. Then I show a video of you in a three-point stance. Then we go on the practice field and practice your three-point stance. Well, they're like down to chapter 15, and they haven't rehearsed chapters 1 to 14. They've talked about them, and it's starting to drive them nuts because they really don't believe they've installed anything. They've talked about it. You're taking notes. They're not sure how diligent everyone is when they're paying attention. You know, in a meeting, when I'm in the room with them, sometimes we have to turn the lights on and catch who's asleep. Now, what do you think they're doing in the room at home? Sitting there having a coffee and a sandwich. Yeah, coach, got it. Yeah, I got it. So they're anxious, and players are starting to tell their coaches, we need to practice this. And so it's frustrating. And I asked, who did I ask yesterday about this? Installation pace. I was talking to one of the head coaches, and I said, how can you justify your installation pace? And everyone has a book. So day 1, we put in this, day 2, this, day 3, this. He goes, you're right. And Bruce Arians said it too. He said, I installed the whole offense at the mini camp. Then I reinstalled the whole base offense at the OTAs. And then the first week of camp in July, we reinstall it for the 3rd time. So we have a foundation. They're going to go to camp in July with no installs. So how much can you put in? What's the challenge of what you can get ready for the first game? And any coach who thinks, oh, I'm just going to get to my normal pace, they're going to find out that the players don't know what they're doing. So it's very frustrating to the assistant coaches. And the head coaches are, you know, they got a public image and they got a league to support and a lot of things. But the guys that are doing the teaching, they're not real happy.
Pat, I hesitate to bring this up now because there's a part of me that would love to do an entire segment with you on it. But do you think the NFL is going to buy another football league? The CFL could go under, and the XFL's in bankruptcy court, and ESPN is actually one of the people interested in buying it. I mean, is this an opportunity for the NFL to own their own spring or secondary league? Do you think that they will cannonball into this pool?
Well, 1, I think they should, and 2, I think they won't. Look, they owned a league already, and yeah, okay, it didn't make money, but all the guys that were in personnel were telling their owners, we're saving money like crazy on player development. And we all know the guys who went to Europe and came back and became NFL players, lots of quarterbacks. So no, they don't have an interest in it, and I don't understand why. But they don't. And I honestly, down below, they're probably thinking, we got college football. They're as good a farm system as any. Let's not get them mad at us for anything. So I don't think they do it. And I don't think they feel threatened by the XFL in any way, shape, or form, because their TV deal is never going to be leveraged against the NFL.
Right.
And the Canadian thing makes the most sense to me, but I don't think they're going to do it.
But the NFL in the last few weeks, some issues have come up. Minority hiring. We've talked about training of officials for the long time. It is one of the benefits of having your own minor league system. You get a chance to address some of the things that you only have 32 areas to address in the NFL. Of the two, purchasing the XFL in bankruptcy or propping up or owning the CFL, which do you think is more realistic?
Well, I would take the Canadian League. And I've interviewed and run surveys with the Canadian fans, lots of them. The majority, and a significant majority, would love to play American football up there. Out in the Western area, not so much. British Columbia, those guys, they're kind of old school. But Montreal, Toronto, those guys, anything in the East, those guys are all about it. And so I think that's an easy one to do. And I don't know why they wouldn't do it. But as I said, here's how the NFL looks at things like the XFL. Okay, was it really making money? Was it going to be a gigantic financial risk? Would we get a better TV deal? Then maybe it makes sense. But the NFL looks at the players, the officials, the coaches, the GMs. If they think they're any good, they're just going to offer them jobs. And think about that. They don't have to do anything to pluck the best of those leagues. And anytime anyone's good in Canada, someone from the NFL tries to sign them. Canadian coaches have been coming down into American coaching quite a bit. So they don't look at the things you and I like, David, in regards to, wow, what an advantage. You could nurture more refs. Yeah, go officiate the XFL games, and if we think you're any good, we'll hire you. What guy I'll just use officials for a second, then we can talk coaches and GMs. What guy, if you call him and say, hey, I watched 4 of your games this spring. You're a hell of an official. We'd like to hire you. What guy's going to say, nah, I'm going to stay in the XFL?
He's Pat Kerwin of SiriusXM's NFL Radio, weekday afternoons 3 to 7 with his co-host Jim Miller. Pat joining us once again, courtesy of Pinchers from Tampa to Key West and many points in between. Pinchers, because you can't fake fresh. Good hearing you, my friend.
It's great hearing you. And Mark and I are both tickled to death that you're back in action here. And you know what? The local people recognize you were gone, because I saw a lot of people, and I think Mark knows a bunch of them over at the golf course, and they were like, what's up with these guys? I said, well, we all know what happened to David, and he's going to get better, and they're going to be back. But it got to be almost a complaint level. Well, there's no football on in here in the morning. So I said, I offered Mark I'd help more, and he told me, nah, I don't need you. I'll just take time.
That's not you son of a. That's all right. I'll take it. Stone crab price is going up next year, Pat.
That was going up anyway. I know that. I might as well get my new money's worth.
That's right. Be well, Pat. We'll talk later this week.
Boys.
Pat Kerwin, kind enough to join us once again here on Miller and Moulton. The good, the better, and the best as we wrap up this Tuesday, the 2nd of June, 100 days until kickoff of the NFL season. 88 days away from kickoff of the college football season, of course, pending them both kicking off on time. Miller and Moulton, thanks for listening. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program.
This is the Dan Patrick Show.
Remember, he said he was taking his talents to South Beach. Kobe invented that phrase. LeBron said Kevin Love doesn't get to eat after a bad game. Mike did that to Horace Grant. If LeBron punched Kyrie Irving, we let him get away with everything. We don't let LeBron get away with anything.
Dan Patrick. The Dan Patrick Show. Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is D.R. Martineau.
Dan Martineau here, owner of D.R. Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida. We're still finding a lot of roofs with hurricane and windstorm damage. Call us today for a free inspection. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is D.R. Martineau.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor Meisters in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Core-Tec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Core-Tec in stock, ready to go pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Core-Tec that you have. You also have other Core-Tec products as well.
We also carry the Core-Tec stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Core-Tec, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Core-Tec wood. Look of wood, real wood, but with a more stable core for Southwest Florida's humidity.
If you haven't been to the Floor Meisters, you really owe it to yourself to visit the store. 6281 Naples Boulevard, right next to Costco, or go online, floormeisters.com. That's floormeisters.com.
You should be driving a Kia from Galliana. Galliana Kia.
Galliana Kia in Fort Myers is open, and we're here to help. Over 400 vehicles in stock. New 2020 Kia Forte LXS lease. 0 down. $149 per month. That's right. A new Kia for $149 per month with 0 down. Plus at Galliana Kia in Fort Myers, you can drive payment-free for 4 months, interest-free for up to 75 months, and worry-free for 100,000 miles. Plus prepaid gas for up to a year. Our parts service and body shop are open to serve you. New Kias, 0 down, $149 per month at Galliana Kia, 1/2 mile south of Daniels Parkway on US 41 in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. Call 239-481-2600. GallianaCars.com.
You should be driving a Kia from Galliana. Galliana Kia.
36-month lease, 10,000 miles per year, 0 to its signing, plus tax, tag, title, doc, and dealer fee. 0 security deposit, $13.33 per month per thousand borrowed for 75 months at 0 APR with 0 down.
105.9 Naples. We are Buckford.
Even in my 80s, every dive is exciting and enjoyable. When I developed cataracts years ago, I couldn't see well underwater. You can have the best gear and know the best dive spots. If your eyes aren't the best, it's just not the same. And Dr. Scheibo knows that.
Knowing how much Jimbo cares about diving, it was a privilege to fix his vision.
It's great to know that we got eye doctors in our area that care just as much about me as I care about being in the water.
Hi, this is Dr. Scheibel from Community Eye Center. My partner, Dr. Spatafora, and I want to remind everybody, don't be a spreader. The coronavirus is so tiny, 100 million particles fit on the head of a pin. As we run around in our trucks and cars and play golf and go fishing and go to work and do the things we like to do, we are spreading the virus. The virus can only move with us. Over 65, diabetes, COPD, all these folks will be hurt severely by this virus. Wash your hands, be careful, don't be a spreader.
In Southwest Florida, the weather can change from gorgeous to dangerous in a flash.
Believe me, all weather forecasts are not equal.
At Wink News, we're changing the way that you see the weather.
Armed with the most advanced weather technology, trust the experience of the Wink Weather Authority to show you what's coming first.
Severe weather is moving across our area.
The Weather Authority's tracking what's happening.
Hours ahead, when minutes count. Trust Wink News, the Weather Authority. From the best headlines,
the best,
to the worst.
It's the worst thing that ever happened to anybody ever.
Prepare yourself and hide the women and children. This is Mark Miller's Good, Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio.
You're live.
For the good today, we go to Minneapolis, where Sanford Middle School was asking the community for help in response to the protest and the destruction that has gone along in Minneapolis following the murder of George Floyd on the street. They requested 85 meal kits be donated to feed families in the area who wouldn't have access to food. Well, they got the 85 meal kits plus another 10, 11,000.
Whoa.
Right. Lines of cars dropped off supplies. It was 14 blocks long in one direction, held traffic backed up all day. The extra donations will be given to local food banks. For the better, we go to Alaska, where a plane flying 4 Alaska Department of Forestry employees crashed shortly after takeoff. It was carrying emergency firefighters to help with wildfires, but crashed into a water-filled gravel pit. A group of teenagers ranging in age from 13 to 19 were the first on the scene, waded into the water to help. It looks as if there were no fatalities. All on board were flown to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
Remarkable.
Absolutely remarkable. And finally, the best. We go to Brazil, where a 5-month-old Brazilian baby is recovering from the coronavirus and heading home. Dom was diagnosed with the illness, spent 54 days in the hospital. For 32, he was in a coma and connected to a ventilator. He is now going home. Terrific story. And that right there is the good, the better, and the best on this June 2nd of 2020.
100 days away from kickoff of the NFL season, which is scheduled for September 10th in Kansas City. Just had Pat Kerwin on. He thinks the game will kick off as scheduled, but he doesn't think there will be fans at the game. I will say, we haven't talked about this much. I mean, we don't have a ton of Washington Nationals fans in Southwest Florida. And if you're a Chiefs fan, and I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I get it. It's a pimple on the back of life. But, 50 years you go and you finally win the Super Bowl. And that first game, it's Super Bowl champs and you're going to hoist the flag and all that. And Arrowhead also, as raucous NFL venue as there is. And how surreal will it be that the Chiefs potentially in an empty stadium?
David, I'm telling you right now, I will be shocked if that's the case. 100 days is a long time.
It is.
We keep acting like it's 100 seconds, not 100 days. Go back 100 days.
Well, the Super Bowl was a little more than 100 days ago.
Thank you. We hadn't even started into this pandemic yet.
In fact, I believe today is 120 or 121 days. Today's 121 days since the Super Bowl. So think about that. We're only a little bit past the halfway point of the offseason.
So I just think that that's a little premature, and maybe I am still being much more optimistic than I should be. But you know me, David, Mr. Optimism, glass half full type of guy that I am. But I think we're playing with a lot of fans come September in the NFL.
Well, I hope you are right. Today's apparently a big day with the MLS. The players may get locked out today by the owners.
The question is, will anybody notice? Thanks so much for listening. The Dan Patrick Show is next, right here on Fox Sports Radio.
Need a checkup? Call the doctor.
Apparently our internet got a little shaky there.
Did it?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you,
You
Jiro.
too, Jiro.